Part 37. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 366. It seems that the rumors in the sect were not wrong. The land of chaos has indeed been opened. But it seems that apart from Yayu, not many people have successfully entered this abyss. I think it should be because they don't have the treasure map of the land of chaos to protect them. Musian stood on the top of a mountain with his hands behind his back. His luxurious black robe with gold thread fluttered in the cold wind, and his soft black hair was blown a little messy by the wind. His handsome face was slightly pale. If it were in the past, he would definitely be a dandy young master in a certain family, a little villain waiting to be slapped in the face by the protagonist. However, Musian has now counterattacked and successfully embraced the legs of several beauties. His physique has been strengthened several times. The chosen son has the golden finger of the grandfather in his body, and he also has the big sister in his body. Musian looked down at this vast border. The mountains, the lush green forests, and the unknown monsters hiding in this ancient forest. This is the border. The heaven-asking lock is indeed a first-grade spirit weapon of the ancestral weapon level. It can travel through space and does not consume much spiritual energy from Musian. This is also the result of Yekingzin's nurturing of the heaven-asking lock in the past. It is unknown which great man left behind the Jiyuan in this chaotic land. According to previous rumors, even the 5th grade returning to the Void Land immortals will be suppressed to the 5th grade refining spirit when they enter the Jiyuan. Musian sighed in his heart. This Jiyuan is somewhat similar to the Forbidden Area. Any cultivator who enters it will be cursed by a very terrifying curse. The curse will only disappear when leaving the Jiyuan. This also means that cultivators need to suppress their own curses while taking risks in the Jiyuan, and at the same time guard against other cultivators with malicious intentions. However, for Musian, this curse was not very useful. After all, he was carrying a fragment of the map of the Chaos Land, which carried the love of Sister Feiying. "Sister, yeah, I'm going in," Musian said. At this moment, there were already many cultivators surrounding this Chaos Land, and most of them were hesitating whether to take the risk to enter this border. Some cultivators saw the demonic energy rising to the sky near the border, and they were worried that if they rashly stepped into the extreme abyss, they would be attacked by demon cultivators. But Musian already had the mark of the demon world, and the demon cultivators would not recognize him as a cultivator from Dongzhou, so naturally there was no worry of being attacked by demon cultivators. When Musian turned into a stream of light and flew towards the extreme abyss on a sword, a demon cultivator on a certain mountaintop glanced at him casually and then lazily withdrew his gaze. Today, he has seen too many cultivators, including demon cultivators, who wanted to step into the extreme abyss, but ended up dying under the curse. For him, Musian was just one of them. However, just as he was about to retract his gaze, he suddenly froze again, stared at Musian's face for a few more times, and suddenly he was startled and turned his head and said, "Go inform Deputy Clan Leader Fang Long, it seems that the person he mentioned 2 days ago is here." As soon as the voice fell, a spy who reported the news turned around immediately, turned into a long rainbow, and rushed towards the cave on the top of the mountain. The demon-devouring Rhino clan is one of the demon clans responsible for guarding the border, and their deputy clan leader had just explained that if they found Musian's trace, they should report to him. The name Musian, even in the demon world, many demon cultivators have heard of it. After all, the Green Emperor said a few days ago that Musian was her Taoist partner, which was equivalent to giving Musian a talisman. How many people in this world dare to touch the Taoist partner of the powerful Hedeo realm? Even those who are in the same Hedeo realm dare not offend easily. I don't know what the deputy clan leader is thinking. It seems that he has set his sights on Musian. While the spy was thinking, he had already arrived in a hall and saw the deputy chief of the devouring demon Rhino who was meditating and practicing. "Chief, the person you mentioned before has entered the abyss," the spy whispered. Fang Long suddenly opened his eyes, and a gleam of brilliance flashed across his eyes. He really came. There seemed to be some surprise in his tone, and then Fang Long had a faint smile on his face, saying, "Let someone get ready, and follow me to the abyss later." The deterrence of the Green Emperor is indeed frightening, but this is the demon world. Musian, a cultivator from Dongzhou, trespassed into the demon world. According to the rules of the demon world, it would not be too much to kill him. Of course, with the existence of the Green Emperor, it is obviously irrational to do so. At that time, Her Majesty the Queen may not rescue him. After all, even Her Majesty the Queen would not want to take on the anger of the Hedeo realm. But if we get something from Musian first, and then present it to Her Majesty the Queen. According to what Yayu said before, there is the Qi of Heaven in Musian's body. Her Majesty the Queen has been collecting the Qi of Heaven for many years. If the Qi of Heaven is presented to her, maybe he can take the position of the Lord of this region. It seems that this Ji Yuan is really related to the heavenly court. The spiritual energy here seems to come from the heavenly court. A passage in the void unfolded silently, and Musian walked in from the passage. He looked around and said to himself in surprise. What appeared in front of him was a rather vast area. Although it was called Ji Yuan, there was a different world in Ji Yuan. The mountains, rivers, and lakes were filled with rich spiritual energy, which was exactly like the scene when the road to immortality appeared in Jizhu that day. So much so that some of the lucky cultivators couldn't resist the temptation and meditated nearby. After all, with such a rich spiritual energy, practicing for 1 or 2 days is equivalent to more than 10 days in the outside world. Be careful, the curse here is a bit strong, no less than the curse in the restricted area. If you are accidentally infected and not suppressed, you may die suddenly. At this time, Yekingzin's reminder came from Musian's heart. Although in Musian's natural furnace, Yekingzin could still roughly perceive the various changes in the outside world. I know, thank you for your reminder. Musian thanked him, then paused and continued, however, this curse seems to have no effect on me. Yekingzin was slightly stunned, and his spiritual consciousness swept through Musian's body. Strange, the curse here has never attached to you, what's going on? This curse and the curse of the restricted area seem to come from the same lineage. In the past, the younger generation took the reincarnation water in the restricted area, and I think it is because of this that I am immune to the erosion of the curse. Musian smiled. Any cultivator who enters this area has to suppress the curse in his body, but Musian is different. He doesn't need to suppress the curse at all. Moreover, because of the existence of the treasure hunting rat, he can quickly know the location of the treasure. After all, Yayu arrived at Ji Yuan earlier than him. With Yayu's luck, he must have found the real entrance to Ji Yuan. Musian closed his eyes slightly and communicated with the nightmare that was following Yayu in the void, asking about Yayu's whereabouts. After a while, a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He is really worthy of being a man of great luck. The cultivators here either accidentally touched the mechanism and died suddenly, or they are still hitting walls everywhere, struggling to find the core area of Ji Yuan. Only Yayu has found the correct route and entered the real core area. Is this also the favor of heaven? However, Yayu knows the core area of Ji Yuan, which means that he can also follow the route taken by the treasure hunting rat to the core area. As Musian continued to go deeper, there were fewer and fewer monks nearby. On the way, Musian occasionally saw a few monks, all of whom were covered with dense and terrifying curses. Obviously, the deeper you go, the more terrifying the curses are. If you don't have the treasure map fragments of the Chaos Land to protect you, you will soon die if you rashly go deep into this core area. Along the way, Musian did not encounter any danger. After all, the road he took was the same road Yayu had taken before. Even if there were any dangers along the way, Yayu had already cleared them. As time passed, Musian flew slowly along the road Yayu had taken before, and thick black fog gradually appeared in front of him. The deeper Musian went, the more he was secretly amazed. Yayu's luck was too exaggerated. He had been suppressed by him several times, but he still had such an exaggerated luck. When he came here just now, he clearly saw that there were extremely dangerous formations and mechanisms in the black fog around him, and he might trigger the mechanisms if he was not careful. As a result, Yayu found the most correct path among so many dangerous mechanisms, and had already reached the deepest part of the abyss. But after Musian sighed for a while, his expression became much more solemn. As soon as he stepped into the black fog, he felt a certain traction in his body. Something was calling him in the depths of the abyss. Swish! With a fierce look in his eyes, Yayu chopped off the doll blocking him with a sword, grabbed the ancient key that fell from the doll, and gasped. Then, he slowly raised his head and looked at the gate of the abyss palace that was close at hand. Finally reached the deepest part of the abyss. At this moment, Yayu breathed out as if relieved of a heavy burden. Although he was exhausted, his expression was full of ecstasy. Along the way, he overcame all obstacles, experienced the terrifying beast tide, killed demon cultivators, and even solved many Dongzhou cultivators who were extremely unfriendly to him. He also cracked the secret of this Jiyuan, and finally came to the end. Outside the palace, the black fog was hazy, and the gloomy environment made the air seem extremely cold and humid, and even many dry bones of cultivators who fell here could be seen on the side. At the end of the front was the bronze gate of the Jiyuan palace, and the key in his hand was the key to open the bronze gate. If I guessed correctly, the immortal fate we want this time is in this Jiyuan palace. The old man's faint voice came from Yayu's heart, but his tone was full of relief. To be honest, he didn't think Yayu could get here at first, but the facts proved that Yayu was full of possibilities and created impossible miracles. It's a pity that Musian is not here, otherwise this time we can take this opportunity to get rid of him, Yayu whispered, with a bit of regret in his tone. If nothing unexpected happens, the inheritance in this Jiyuan is likely to be left by a great master in ancient times. If you get his inheritance, it will be easy for you to deal with Musian in the future, Yao Shan said. Teacher is right. The most urgent thing now is the immortal fate in this palace. Yayu showed joy on his face, grabbed the key, and walked towards the ancient bronze gate. He felt more and more glad that the person he chose was Yao Shan. Although Ye Qingxin was an ancestor of the Ye family, she turned to an outsider, and only his teacher would help him unconditionally. Yayu came to the bronze door, inserted the key into the keyhole, raised his head suddenly, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. After I leave here, I will make my ancestors regret their past choices. If the ancestor had followed him, he could now continue her weak spiritual consciousness for her, but by following Musian, she would get nothing. Boom! Behind the giant bronze door, there was suddenly a terrifying vibration. Along with the joy that gradually appeared on Yayu's face, the scene inside the giant bronze door gradually came into his field of vision. There is light in front of my eyes. It's a faint white light. Yayu was bathed in white light, but his heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. There was a look of ecstasy in his eyes, and he almost blurted out, "The energy of heaven." Yes, the treasure in this Jiyuan palace is actually the chi of heaven. There was already a sense of heavenly energy in his body, and now he could clearly feel how rich the heavenly energy was in this palace. There are 3 full portions of heavenly Dao Qi deep in this palace. Yayu almost couldn't wait to speed up and stepped into the palace. His eager footsteps could only be heard in the entire huge palace. At the end of the palace is a coffin that looks very ancient, and the 3 breaths of heavenly energy come from this coffin. Be careful. The more you get to this time, the less likely you will be careless, Yao Shan immediately spoke to remind Yayu. This place is so weird, Yayu may die here if he is not careful. And his current spiritual consciousness is too weak. If Yayu dies, he will not be much better. I know, I will be careful. Yayu also calmed down quickly. As he approached slowly, his spiritual sense was also careful to guard his surroundings, and finally he came to the coffin. He raised his palms to channel his spiritual energy and grabbed hold of the coffin. Crunch! The coffin slowly opened, and the light in front of him became more and more dazzling. Yayu looked into the coffin with a bit of expectation and a bit of anxiety, and couldn't wait to take away the 3 pieces of heavenly energy. However, when he looked around, the joy on his face slowly solidified. There is nothing in this coffin, only the remnants of the heavenly energy remain here. And in the coffin, there is still a drop of blood essence. The essence and blood exuded an extremely terrifying aura. Yayu almost stared at it for the first time. He felt as if he was staring into the abyss. His heart trembled violently and he stumbled back, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He froze in place while holding onto the stone pillar, staring blankly at the ancient coffin, muttering to himself as if in disbelief, "How is it possible? Where is my heavenly energy?" At this moment, his eyes were filled with confusion and anger. There should have been 3 pieces of heavenly energy here, but now they are all gone. Could it be that someone has taken away 3 pieces of heavenly energy before me? But how is this possible? I should be the first one to come here. Yayu murmured in a low voice. Moreover, a person can only withstand at most 1 amount of heavenly energy. He has a magic weapon that can store heavenly energy, but it should be impossible for others to do so. Relax your spiritual consciousness for the time being. I want to borrow your body to see the layout of this place, Yao Shan said solemnly. Then, his spiritual consciousness took over Yayu's body, and he stared at the empty coffin with a solemn expression. After a while, Yao Shan's expression slowly solidified, and there was a rare hint of fear in his expression. No. There was a woman sealed in this coffin. She may wake up and leave the palace. She may have taken away the 3 pieces of heavenly Daochi, Yao Shan said in an almost confident tone. After the woman in the coffin woke up, she took away 3 pieces of the spirit of heaven. Yayu muttered to himself in astonishment, and asked hurriedly, "Teacher, does he know who the owner of this coffin is?" Yao Shan glanced at the drop of essence and blood in the coffin, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes, and whispered, "I don't know, but even when I was at my peak, I had never seen anyone. There is such divinity in the essence and blood. Even if I touch this drop of essence and blood now, I'm afraid my soul will fly away in an instant." As soon as these words came out, Yayu's heart was shaken, his face was extremely pale, and he felt a dense goosebump crawling up his body. Even the teacher is so afraid, how terrifying must the identity of the owner in the coffin be? Originally, he was still secretly scolding the owner of the coffin for taking away 3 pieces of the chi of heaven, but now he could only secretly say that he was lucky. Fortunately, the owner of the coffin is no longer here. Otherwise, if someone were to break into his residence, I wonder if they would be punished. In a place like this, you would be lucky to survive. Yayu was secretly rejoicing in his heart. At this moment, Yao Shan suddenly seemed to have noticed something and said softly, "Someone has entered this palace again." "How is that possible?" Yayu almost blurted out. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. It can be said that he was able to reach here so quickly because of the favorable time, place, and people. If given another chance, he might not be able to reach the palace of Ji Yuan safely so quickly. But now there is someone like him who has arrived at this palace. Looking at it like this, you and I are both a step too late. At this time, Yayu suddenly heard a man's clear and gentle voice coming from behind him. The moment the voice fell, Yayu was stunned for a moment, and then, as if in a slowed-down movie, his eyes slowly opened wide and he suddenly turned his head to look. Muzian. How is it possible? How could you get to this palace so quickly? Yayu's eyes flashed with a cold light, staring at the handsome man in front of him, and said in a cold voice, "Are you following me?" Musian shook his head and said in a gentle tone, "Brother, you misunderstood. I have encountered a lot of troubles along the way. I didn't know you were here. It was just a coincidence." Musian, you are so hypocritical. If you weren't following me, how could you have arrived here so quickly? You stared at Musian closely, his tone was extremely cold, but he forced himself to stay rational. This palace is really weird. Although the owner in the coffin has left, there is no guarantee when he will come back. Moreover, he has consumed a lot of spiritual energy along the way, so he may not be Musian's opponent. Brother, there is actually some misunderstanding between you and me, but now is not the time to explain. Brother, shouldn't mind me looking for my own destiny, right? Musian asked with a smile. Yu's eyes flickered slightly, but he didn't say a word. The immortality in this palace is the chi of heaven, but now all three of the chi of heaven have been taken away by the mysterious owner in the coffin, and there is nothing here at all. Maybe Musian will touch some formation mechanisms and die suddenly. Seeing that Yu didn't say a word, Musian withdrew his gaze. He closed his eyes slightly and held his breath in concentration. From the very beginning, he had always felt as if something was pulling him in his body, and when he stepped into this palace, this feeling became more intense. Almost a moment later, Musian opened his eyes, and his eyes fell on the coffin at the end of the palace that exuded an ancient atmosphere. Idiot looking for death. Seeing Musian walking towards the coffin and even reaching out to touch it, Yu had a trace of ridicule in his eyes, but he was filled with ecstasy in his heart. Even the teacher was afraid of the drop of essence and blood in the coffin, let alone getting close to it and touching it. Just now he just stared at the drop of essence and blood, which was backfired and hurt his spiritual consciousness. Now Musian actually took the initiative to get close and touch. Yu stepped back slowly. Once something happened in the coffin, he could evacuate the place immediately to avoid being involved in danger. Seeing that Musian was about to reach out and touch the drop of blood essence in the coffin, the blood essence emitted an astonishing spiritual pressure almost at that moment. At this time, Kingzin's urgent reminder came to Musian's heart, "Get back quickly, if you touch this blood essence, I can't protect you." From the past to the present, she has seen many powerful beings in the Hedeo realm, and even seen a few in the heavenly court, but this blood essence is likely to be a feather, or even a fairyland. If it is true that he has ascended to the immortal realm, the identity of the owner in this coffin is probably the immortal who once created the world of immortal cultivation, and is also the only emperor of heaven in the entire cultivation world to ascend to the immortal realm. However, at this moment, a strange scene happened. After hearing Kingzin's words, Musian's head shook slightly, and he immediately wanted to step back, but the blood essence seemed to come alive, quietly flying out of the coffin, turning into a faint radiance, and entering born in the furnace. The palace fell into a deathly silence. Behind him, Yu, who was waiting to witness the sudden death of Musian, stared at this scene, his heart beating uncontrollably. What did he just see? The essence and blood of the owner in the coffin was swallowed by Musian? Is that drop of essence and blood the immortal destiny in this palace? I actually gave up my destiny to Musian? When he thought of this, Yu was almost blinded by jealousy. The killing intent in his eyes could not be concealed as he stared at Musian's back. Seemingly aware of the strong killing intent, Musian recovered from his sudden daze, turned to look at Yu, and said with a smile, "Thank you, brother for your help. Although we still don't know what this essence and blood is, it seems that it may be related to the natural furnace cauldron. Musian, if you die here, I'm afraid no one will know about it." Yu stared at Musian coldly. Although he may not be able to defeat Musian on his own, you must know that there is a powerful helper in his body who was in the realm of enlightenment in his previous life. And in this palace, Musian didn't even have anyone who could help him. If you think about it carefully, this is the best time. When Musian heard this, he was stunned for a moment, and then his face changed slightly. Brother Ye, for the sake of your ancestors of the Ye family, I always want to reconcile with you, but you actually want to kill me. I told Sister Ye before that I would definitely find a way to get along with her descendants. This shouldn't be like this between you and me, he then advised. It was okay not to mention Ye Qingxin. When Musian mentioned her, and then thought of how Musian got along sweetly with that beautiful ancestor after he left, the jealousy in Ye Yu's heart almost burst out. Although Ye Qingxin is his ancestor, Ye Yu has always subconsciously regarded her as his own. Ye Yu's face was extremely ugly, and the murderous intent in his eyes was even more intense as he stared at Musian, and he said coldly, "Descendants? Those kind of ancestors who are open to outsiders, are they worthy of being called the ancestors of my Ye family?" Musian's eyes changed slightly and said, "Brother Ye, what you said is too much. After all, she is also your ancestor, and she is also on your side in private." Ye Yu had already been overwhelmed by anger and sneered, "You know best whether you are targeting me or not, why should you be so hypocritical dash?" Snap. Before he finished speaking, Ye Yu suddenly felt burning pain on his face. He looked down in disbelief at Musian, who appeared in front of him almost instantly. He was slightly stunned at first, and then his eyes burned with anger. "Ye Yu, I thought you were just young and ignorant, but you have a good nature. But it seems that even I sometimes misjudge the person." But before Ye Yu could speak, the moment he heard Ye Qingxin's voice ringing in the palace, Ye Yu's heart trembled and he almost blurted out, "Ancestor." She actually followed Musian here. At this moment, whether he was blinded by the slap or something else, Ye Yu's head was buzzing. But what followed was anger. If at first he only thought that his ancestor was bewitched by Musian, now when he discovered that Ye Qingxin was hiding in Musian's body, Ye Yu completely distrusted Ye Qingxin. No wonder you were able to find this place so quickly. It seems like your ancestors were secretly helping you." Ye Yu gritted his teeth and stared at Musian. Seeing Musian's innocent look at this moment, he was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Sure enough, they are a couple of bitches. The moment the words fell, a woman in a black and red dress appeared silently in the palace. Her magnificent and bright red eyes stared at Ye Yu, her eyes full of calm indifference. "Interesting," she said softly. "On the way to this land of chaos, little friend Mu also said good things about you to me, and even tried every means to reconcile with you for this matter. And I had no intention of getting involved in this matter, and what about you?" Ye Qingxin looked at Ye Yu with disappointment in her eyes. Even on the way here, she actually didn't want to interfere with Musian and Ye Yu's affairs. From beginning to end, she only really took action when Ye Yu said those words. It can be said that as Ye Yu's ancestor, Ye Qingxin has done everything he can to be kind and righteous. And what about Ye Yu? From now on, you are no longer a descendant of my Ye family, and you no longer need to call me your ancestor. Ye Qingxin's cold voice sounded in the palace, and Ye Yu also woke up from the daze just now. He was also extremely angry and sneered, "I have never done any help to the Ye family, why should I be called the ancestor of the Ye family? Instead of helping the descendants of the Ye family, we are instead helping an outsider, an ancestor of the Ye family. Why don't any of them understand him, but all help Musian? Ye Qian, Bai Ruoxi, Ye Lingxian, and now even Ye Qingxin. And all of this is thanks to Musian." Ye Yu's eyes looking at Musian became colder and colder, but at this moment, he suddenly saw Musian smiling. "Brother Ye, you can't even stand looking at me as an outsider. You don't know why Sister Ye went down to the lower world, right?" Musian said quietly, "She is looking for a way to ascend the whole family. In the future, the entire Ye family will ascend to heaven." The moment these words fell, Ye Yu's body froze. The whole family ascends? What kind of concept is this? Even Ye Yu cannot possibly not know it. If Yekingzin really makes the entire Ye family ascend to heaven in the future, what kind of feat would that be? That would become a beautiful story praised by monks in Jizhu, but at that time, the Ye family would not have Yeyu. Because Yekingzin had completely severed ties with him just now. When he thought of this, Yeyu felt a stabbing pain in his heart, as well as a strong hatred for Musian. Let's withdraw first. Even the old man in Yeyu's body couldn't stand it anymore. He sighed softly, turned into a shadow and appeared in mid-air, and slowly spoke. But Yeyu was blinded by hatred and his eyes were red. Teacher, Musian must die. Even if your ancestor is just a ray of spiritual consciousness, we can at most be tied with them and cannot kill them. Yao Shan shook his head. At this time, from the back of the palace, a gentle laughter suddenly came. What if we are added to the list? This sudden voice sounded, and Yeyu was stunned for a moment. Then, his eyes suddenly burst into joy and he turned around suddenly. Fang Long. But soon, Yeyu discovered that Fang Long did not step into the palace after speaking. Instead, he bowed his head in an extremely respectful manner. Sir, Musian is here. Yeyu then looked towards the entrance of the palace, and soon saw a woman wearing a gorgeous dress. But Fang Long actually showed an extremely respectful expression in front of her. Yao Shan's eyes narrowed slightly and he said in surprise, the first seat. She is the number one in the demon world. Yeyu's eyes almost showed ecstasy. He didn't expect that Fang Long had such energy and even invited everyone to the Jiyuan palace. With first seat and Fang Long's help, wouldn't it be easy to kill Musian? Fang Long, I didn't expect you to invite the first seat of the demon world. Yao Shan looked at Fang Long with a smile, and was also surprised. However, with the help of the first seat and Fang Long, Musian would definitely not be able to escape this time. Fang Long also showed a faint smile and said, I mentioned to the first seat that Musian has the energy of heaven in her body, so she agreed to do it herself. When he said this, he looked at Musian with a little more sarcasm. In fact, at the beginning, Fang Long only planned to bring some demon cultivators of the demon-devouring Rhino clan into the Jiyuan palace, but he didn't expect to meet the first seat of the demon world on the way. He himself didn't expect that his luck was so good. You know, the first seat of the demon world has been following the queen for many years, and she is hard to find. As a result, he met her at the border. If he hadn't been lucky enough to see the first seat's appearance at the beginning, he might not have recognized the first seat's appearance. Yekingzin narrowed her eyes and stared at the two demon cultivators who suddenly appeared in front of her. Ancestor, if you change your mind now, it may not be too late. Considering the relationship between you and me, if you leave this place, I will not stop you. Yeyu said, but his eyes were fixed on Musian. His expression was extremely cold. Fang Long's eyes also flickered slightly, and he smiled, this senior, since you are just a wisp of spiritual consciousness, it is not worth taking such a big risk for a cultivator. If you take the initiative to retreat, we will definitely not stop you. Yekingzin is a very difficult existence to deal with. If she is willing to leave, they will be much more relaxed. Even the Hedeo realm dare not command the seat to do things. I didn't expect that a junior would dare to say this now. It's really interesting. After hearing Fang Long's words, Yekingzin's red eyes were a little more cold. This is equivalent to rejecting the proposal of Fang Long and others. It seems that the senior does not intend to retreat. Fang Long showed a playful smile on his face. If the first seat was not here today, he would have to hesitate. After all, even if there was a wisp of spiritual consciousness, it would at least be at the peak of returning to the void. If the other party burned his body, he could even enter the state of enlightenment in a short time. But today, even the first seat is here, so there is no need to worry. Yao Shan, if we get rid of this ancestor of the Ye family, it should be no problem, right? Fang Long turned his head and looked at Yao Shan not far away. Yao Shan did not speak, but just set his eyes on Yeyu. Obviously, This is for him to make the decision. Yayu clenched his fists tightly, his expression was very indifferent. Everything is up to the teacher, he said slowly. Since Ye Qingxin has severed relations with him, there is no need for him to think about the old relationship. Yao Shan raised his eyebrows slightly, looked at Yayu deeply, and said nothing. Fang Long looked at this scene, and there was a little more interesting smile on his face. He turned his head to look at the first seat in the demon world in front of the palace. He was about to ask the first seat to make a move, but he found that this first seat, who was above 1 person and below 10,000 people in the demon world, had never stepped into the palace. Instead, he kept his head down respectfully, as if waiting for something. Master first seat. For some reason, Fang Long suddenly had a bad premonition. At this time, Musian suddenly felt a familiar breath coming, and he subconsciously raised his head and looked outside the palace. I didn't expect to see you before the retreat. This feeling is good. Outside the palace, a charming voice suddenly came. Almost the moment this voice sounded in the palace, the hearts of the people present suddenly stagnated. Afterwards, almost everyone subconsciously raised their heads and looked. Outside the palace, the pink demon aura was silently spreading. From the demon aura, a lazy and beautiful sexy figure walked in high-heeled boots. Your Majesty, Fang Long blurted out, with deep awe in his eyes. If the appearance of the first seat was still within his control, then the appearance of the Queen of the Demon Realm was completely beyond his imagination. A heavenly aura actually made Her Majesty come in person? Fang Long's eyes flickered slightly, and he immediately raised his hands and clasped his fists, saying in a deep voice, if possible, please stop the ancestor of the Ye family, and we will deal with Musian. The sexy figure that could turn everyone upside down walked out of the thick demonic aura, and what appeared in the field of vision was a beautiful and charming face. Although there was no provocative action, the breath she exuded was like a deadly poison to the opposite sex present, making people's heartbeats uncontrollably faster. After hearing Fang Long's words, the Queen of the Demon Realm slightly tilted her head for the first time and looked at Fang Long in confusion. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 367. In the palace, countless arrays shrouded it, and mysterious black mist lingered. In addition to this black mist, outside the palace, at this time, I don't know when it was filled with surging demonic energy. Since entering the palace, the Queen of the Demon Realm has never looked at Fang Long. Only after Fang Long spoke, her eyes finally became a little more confused, and she glanced at him inadvertently through the hazy demonic mist. After a while, she casually retracted her gaze. Did you hear that? Even my servants in the demon world know what will happen if they lose contact with me. Although you are smart on weekdays, you seem to be not so smart sometimes. A soft voice with texture sounded softly in the palace. Soft and sexy, her red lips slightly raised a mocking arc, raised her eyes, and her bright red eyes were seductive and seductive, staring at Musian. The palace was filled with a murderous atmosphere just now, but the moment the Queen of the Demon Realm spoke, the murderous atmosphere seemed to stagnate in an instant. Fang Long was slightly stunned. Yao Shan narrowed his eyes and looked at the scene with doubt. For some reason, he seemed to have a bad premonition in his heart. Yayu swallowed his saliva subconsciously, his throat rolled, and his eyes were filled with uncontrollable obsession, but also with a bit of doubt. Even Ye Qingxin was also a little doubtful. At this moment, Ye Qingxin seemed to be standing in the void, the red flame set off the black and red dress, and her graceful body was hidden in the black and red flames, like a fairy in the fire. And the pair of cold and beautiful eyes were full of confusion at this time. She had already prepared to take Musian away even if she burned this wisp of spiritual consciousness. After all, the first seat in the demon world was in Jizhu, where the Hedeo was not prominent, and no one dared to say that they could win her with a sure win. What's more, there were Yayu and Fang Long who were watching closely. However, the queen of the demon realm appeared. And she could clearly feel that the new demon emperor who devoured the first generation of demon emperor did not seem to be hostile to Musian. From the tone just now, it seemed as if the two knew each other. In the dead silence of the crowd, Musian slowly raised his hands and clasped his fists, bowing and said, "I just feel that your majesty is working day and night, and I will feel guilty if I disturb your business." As this voice fell, the air seemed to stagnate in an instant, accompanied by Yayu's uncontrollable heartbeat. Sure enough, it was not his illusion. Musian really knew the queen of the demon realm. Musian was an undercover in the demon world, and he might have colluded with the queen of the demon realm for a long time. But how could this be possible? He was just a cultivator in the realm of refining spirits. How could he come into contact with a powerful person of the level of the queen of the demon realm? Yayu was roaring in his heart, but on the surface he did not move at all, like a sculpture. No. It was not that he did not want to move, but it was due to the fear in his heart. Yayu's body was trembling slightly, and Fang Long's legs were already trembling slightly uncontrollably not far away. The queen of the demon realm, everyone knows that her every smile and frown can charm all living beings, and her every move is filled with magic that can drive cultivators crazy. Even at this moment, Yayu was also charmed by her temperament. Although he knew that something was wrong, he could not move his feet. On the one hand, it was due to uncontrollable obsession, and on the other hand, he had a deep fear of the queen of the demon realm, so that his feet were like lead and he could not move at all. In the past, when he was in Tianqian City, he mentioned to Lianji sect that Musian was sheltering a demon cultivator, but at that time he only knew that Bairuoxi was a demon cultivator, but he never thought that Musian himself was involved with a demon cultivator. "How do you think I should handle this?" the queen of the demon realm spoke again. Her tone was playful, revealing her arrogance that looked down on the world. She stared at Musian with a teasing smile in her bright red eyes. Musian raised his head and saw the tall figure looming in the demon mist, and his heart could not help but ripple slightly. This beautiful snake is really as deadly as poison. Although he knew the danger, he was still uncontrollably attracted to her. Musian said respectfully, "Everything is up to the senior." Fang Long's body trembled slightly, and he finally reacted. He finally realized the current situation, his pupils shrank sharply, and he hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, this is all a misunderstanding dash." "Stupid, shut up," the queen of the demon realm said softly. "I don't know why, even scolding people gives people a feeling of coquettishness. I think this is the innate charm of the queen of the demon realm." Although it was a bit inappropriate, Musian suddenly felt that it would be interesting to be scolded by such a woman. However, Fang Long did not seem to feel the slightest bit of coquettishness. At the moment when the demon queen's voice fell, the will like the sea finally descended completely into the palace, and the vast demonic energy almost enveloped the entire palace. It seemed that she was very far away the moment before, but the next moment, the demon queen had appeared in front of Musian. Her charming and seductive bright red eyes were full of temptation, and she was almost face to face with Musian, breathing like orchid. That beautiful face was full of amorous feelings. Musian stared at that charming and enchanting face, and his heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. Ye Qingxin raised her eyebrows slightly, and inadvertently looked at Musian twice more, and she felt inexplicably unhappy in her heart. She felt quite happy when she secretly cheated on the Green Emperor, but seeing the queen of the demon realm teasing Musian in this way, is a bit unacceptable. The most unacceptable thing is that Musian, who has been wandering among the flowers all year round, is as innocent as a simple boy who doesn't know how to have sex in front of the queen of the demon realm. Just in the conversation with Musian at this time, the queen of the demon realm has taken the initiative. But there is nothing to be done about it. The clear and bright beautiful eyes, the sweet fragrance exhaled when the red lips slightly opened, and the innate charm, any man will only be as innocent as a simple boy in front of the queen of the demon realm. This is the true body of the Queen of the Demon Realm. Different from the spiritual consciousness she showed when facing Musian in the past, the seductive aura she exudes at this moment is irresistible even to the cultivators in the Return to Void realm. Although she looks charming and seductive at first glance, if you look at her carefully, you may think she is innocent and lovely, and then look at her again, she may become a noble and cold queen. No matter what, you can always find the type you like in her. Fortunately, Musian still has some resistance. He bit the tip of his tongue lightly to keep himself calm, lowered his eyes, and said, "Senior, you are joking. This person seems to be a demon cultivator from the border demon-devouring rhino family, and his status is not low. Junior dare not ask Senior to do anything, it's okay for me to suffer a little grievance." Fang Long secretly breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, and his back was covered with cold sweat. In addition to secretly thinking that he was lucky, he hated Yao Shan and Musian more. The former dragged him into such a vortex. He thought it was a good fortune, but he didn't expect that he almost lost his life. As for the latter, Musian was the center of the vortex in this incident. Although I don't know why Her Majesty the Queen has such an ambiguous attitude towards Musian, I think it should be related to the forces behind Musian. After all, Musian's Taoist partner is King Di, and since Musian is an undercover agent left in Dongzhou by the demon world, Her Majesty the Queen also needs some information from him. Thinking this way, everything makes sense. However, when Musian is useless. However, before he could secretly think about the follow-up, he heard Musian's reserved and gentle voice continue. "Although I am not from the demon world, I also hope that the demon world will get better and better in the future. I think even if it is Her Majesty the Queen, if she kills a patriarch of a border area so easily, I am afraid there will be some troubles later, right?" At first glance, this seems to be no problem, but it is like a gentle knife, hiding murderous intent. A demon cultivator with a wide range of experience like Fang Long naturally knows the murderous intent in Musian's words, and his heart jumped suddenly. The Queen of the Demon Realm ignored the people around her, but just gently stroked Musian's face, then lowered her head and leaned close to Musian's ear, and said with her red lips, "Don't let go easily if you want to hurt you." Musian raised his head and looked at the charming figure in front of him. After a long silence, he said softly, "What if it's someone from the demon world?" "Your Majesty." Fang Long raised his head suddenly. He realized that if he didn't speak again, he might not have another chance to speak. However, before he finished speaking, the pink demon mist silently enveloped the palace. A red light lit up in the demon mist, and the python of the world opened its fangs and swallowed the deputy patriarch of the devouring demon rhino in one bite. There was not even a trace of blood in the palace, and even the spiritual energy was swallowed up. The Queen of the Demon Realm's bright red and charming eyes were full of teasing smiles. "If you like it, I'll give it all to you." When she finished speaking, she glanced at Yayu inadvertently. But that casual glance made Yayu's heart tremble violently. Until then, he finally realized his current situation. This is the real state of integration, not spiritual consciousness, but the true body of the Queen of the Demon Realm. After swallowing the essence of the first generation of the Demon King, she has not yet refined it, but she has vaguely touched the bottleneck of integration. "Teacher!" Yayu roared in his heart, his expression was terrified. Yao Shan's eyes flickered slightly, and his heart was also trembling. If he didn't think of a way, he and Yayu would probably have to explain here today. Musian glanced inadvertently and noticed that Yayu, who was not far away, had the idea of retreating in his heart, but he didn't speak. He didn't know what the Queen of the Demon Realm's attitude towards him was. If he asked her to help again, he felt that it was a bit too much. If the Queen of the Demon Realm really wanted his body, then the current scene would probably be a replica of Playing with the Princes with Beacon Fire. This possibility, Musian had never dared to think about it before, but the attitude of the Queen of the Demon Realm today made him seriously doubt Could it be that she really wanted my body? After all, the queen of the demon realm did not kill him when she first appeared in the past, purely because the natural furnace was very interesting, so she placed Musian as a spy in the Lianji sect. Although he and the queen of the demon realm had several exchanges after that, they were just subordinates reporting to their superiors. However, since the queen of the demon realm gave him the power to meet her directly last time, things seemed to be a little wrong. But no matter what, you could not die for the time being. As for the reason, Musian silently glanced at the luck value on his personal interface. Since the last time he saw his luck value has risen to 95 points, and Yu's luck value is running low. However, Musian didn't have an accurate idea of how much the so-called not much meant. If he were to be killed rashly now, it might cause a backlash from heaven. Teacher, take advantage of the moment. At this time, Yu suddenly roared in his heart, and at that moment, Yao Shan immediately took the initiative in Yu's body. He burned Yu's essence, and immediately turned around and turned into a stream of light towards Jiyuan Palace. Rushed away outside. Faced with the arrival of a powerful Hedeo realm in his true form, neither Yao Shan nor Yu had the intention to kill. They only felt that being able to leave the Jiyuan Palace alive was enough. The queen of the demon realm turned her head slightly and glanced outside the Jiyuan Palace. The overwhelming demonic energy gradually filled her body. Killing him now may result in backlash from heaven. When Musian saw this, he immediately reminded him. I know. The queen of the demon realm whispered to herself, raising her head and staring quietly at Yu, who seemed to be trying his best to escape from the abyss. There seemed to be slight ripples in those bright red eyes. But as I said just now, I can give you whatever you like. Do I want you to give it to me? Musian complained in his heart, then hesitated for a moment and was about to speak. However, at this time, he suddenly noticed the teasing eyes of the queen of the demon realm with a faint smile. He was slightly startled at first, and then his heart skipped a beat. This woman can read minds. Musian calmed down a little and said, if Her Majesty the Queen really wants to deal with Yu, she might as well wait a little longer. If nothing else happens, there will be a good show to start later. The queen of the demon realm was indeed attracted by his words and said with great interest. Are you so sure? Musian nodded slightly. Who can feel safe about a person who doesn't even intend to let go of his ancestors, he said softly. At this moment, Yu's body seemed to be burning with flames. His face was extremely pale, but his aura was stronger than ever. After Yao Shan took control of the body, he directly burned Yu's essence. Although he lost nearly half of his lifespan, as long as he was still alive, he would always come back in the future. It seems that we have successfully escaped danger. Yu's voice sounded, with some lingering fear and strong hatred in his tone. I didn't expect that Musian actually colluded with the queen of the demon realm. If this matter is reported to the Lianji section, Yao Shan said quietly, I am also a little surprised. The queen of the demon realm is extremely arrogant by nature, and it is impossible for someone in the god-refining realm to be able to penetrate her eyes. I think there are some secrets in Musian that caught her attention. I didn't expect that idiot Fang Long to have brought the queen of the demon realm. Without her, no one would have noticed even if Musian died in the abyss. Yu's voice was filled with anger. But fortunately I'm still alive. I have to leave Dongzhou after this time. When I come back from my future experience, I can seek revenge from Musian. In addition to regret, Yu was still a little thankful with lingering fears, secretly thinking about his future plans. With the strength of the queen of the demon realm, even if I burn my essence, there is no way I can escape from her grasp. She probably knows your luck, so she doesn't want to kill you and be bitten by your luck, Yao Shan said quietly. The backlash of luck? Teacher, what you mean is that my luck is so strong that even the Taoist realm is afraid of it. Yu was a little surprised. There was a hint of coldness in Yao Shan's eyes, and he spoke very cryptically. In short, if someone wants to kill you forcefully, their luck will backfire. If I want to kill you, there are only two ways. One is to wait until your luck is completely exhausted, and the other is, Yayu's spiritual consciousness is dead, but Yayu is still there. Yayu was stunned for a moment, as if he didn't hear it. If my spiritual consciousness is dead, how can I still be alive? Yayu seemed to have thought of something in his mind. His face changed slightly and he said anxiously, "Teacher, what do you want to do?" The whole journey just now consumed all his spiritual consciousness, and now his spiritual consciousness can be said to be unprecedentedly weak. In the past, he had been slow to help Yao Shan warm up his spiritual consciousness. In fact, part of the reason was that he was afraid that Yao Shan's spiritual consciousness would take away his body when it became stronger. Unexpectedly, although Yao Shan's spiritual consciousness has not become stronger, his spiritual consciousness has become weaker now. After you die, I will be Yayu. In this way, the law of heaven will not come back to bite me. Yao Shan's eyes were filled with a gloomy coldness, and his spiritual consciousness took the initiative and was devouring Yayu's spiritual consciousness. Actually, if you choose to let your ancestor go today, maybe I won't take action so quickly, but your heart is too vicious. The person who deceives the master and destroys the ancestors is you, Yayu. If you dare to attack your ancestors today, who can guarantee that you won't attack your teacher next time? Yayu like this can no longer be trusted by others. I'm not willing to give in. I'm the chosen one, how could I be swallowed up by you? Yayu's spiritual consciousness was extremely weak at this time. He let out a low roar, gritted his teeth, and tried his best to resist the medicine. Devouring of good spiritual consciousness. Yao Shanhan said in a cold voice, "After you die, I will let the name Yayu become the great power of Hedao in Kyushu in the future, so you can go with peace of mind. Whoever uses this body can reach the top of the immortal cultivation realm, except for you. If it weren't for its blessing, you probably wouldn't even be able to reach the realm of refining the spirit." The words made Yayu's will waver, and he subconsciously said, "It? Who is it? Isn't my luck innate?" Yao Shan showed a faint smile, trying to disintegrate Yayu's will with words, "Your luck is naturally not innate, but a gift from heaven. To be more precise, it's because of the way of heaven. The battle for the sovereignty of the two bodies has not yet ended," and suddenly a soft and numb voice came to their ears, but for both Yayu and Yao Shan, this voice was like a nightmare, lingering. Then, they all found that the spiritual energy in the cauldron was being absorbed crazily. Yayu's heart trembled, and he raised his head with red eyes, and saw a beautiful woman who bewitched everyone coming out of the demon fog. She walked towards him step by step, stepping on the void, with a charming smile on her face that was enough to intoxicate people. "Queen of the demon realm, you actually followed me." Yao Shan stared at the woman in front of him in fear. He thought that the queen of the demon realm would acquiesce to Yayu's escape after knowing this, but he didn't expect that she would follow him. Seeing that the spiritual energy in his body was being swallowed by the strange demon fog, and his spiritual consciousness was gradually weakening, Yao Shan said anxiously, "Let me go, and then I can sign a master-servant contract and become a member of the demon world. If I have the all things transformation cauldron, I may be able to refine immortal pills to help you ascend to heaven." The queen of the demon realm was unmoved and stared at him indifferently. Yao Shan was shocked and angry, and said, "You can't kill him, you can't kill him. If you kill him, you will also be attacked by the luck. This is the rule set by the heavenly Dao, even the Hedao realm must abide by this order. Queen of the demon realm, why do you want to help a cultivator from Dongzhou? If you are attacked by the heavenly Dao, it will even affect your future practice." Yayu's spiritual consciousness roared in fear and despair in his body. Why is she not afraid of the heavenly Dao? If the heavenly Dao attacks, even the Hedao realm will not feel good. Boom. Just as Yayu's spiritual consciousness became weaker and weaker, and was about to dissipate, a loud bang came from the sky outside the Jiyuan, and a gentle white light silently enveloped it. The will of the heavenly Dao. At this moment, the sky seemed to have collapsed in a corner, with a deep blue sky on one side and a deep black on the other side. Tick-tock. The backlash of heaven caused a trickle of blood to flow out of the demon queen's fingertips. Yayu raised his head as if he saw hope, but what greeted him was the earthly python that swept out from the demon fog. Yayu's pupils suddenly shrank, and he had no time to speak before he was completely swallowed by the earthly python. Even to the death of Yao Shan and Yayu, they had never thought that the demon queen would ignore the rules of heaven and kill him directly. A faint white light appeared silently in people's vision, and the entire Jiyuan seemed to be filled with the will of heaven. A group of cultivators knelt down uncontrollably, their bodies trembling. The white light seemed to have its own spiritual consciousness, and the pressure attacked the demon queen. The demon queen raised her head, her bright red beautiful eyes were calm and indifferent, and she slapped the will of heaven with a palm, completely crushing the white light. She licked the blood on her fingertips and said calmly, "Let the real owner do it himself next time, you are not qualified. The real excitement has not come yet, I will prepare for it tomorrow. I didn't get enough sleep yesterday, I was too sleepy, so I went to bed early today, please give me some votes." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 368. A ray of will from the heavenly Dao descended on the land of Jizhu. On this day, cultivators from all over Jizhu could vaguely feel the fluctuations coming from the heaven and earth. In the Tianhe garden in the Lianji sect, heavy leaden clouds slowly moved in with the cold wind. After just a while, the cold wind brought drizzle, and the entire courtyard of Tianhe garden was rendered particularly hazy and beautiful by the rain. Bairuoxi held the teacup in both hands, raised her head and stared at the direction where the will of the heavenly Dao appeared, and whispered, "The breath of the heavenly Dao seems to come from the border." There was a trace of worry in her eyes. This time he went to the border, and the will of the heavenly Dao happened to descend on the border. I wonder what happened to Mulang. The snow lotus swayed in the pond in the courtyard. Wei Mengru looked up at the gloomy sky and said, "With Ye Qingzhen following him, there shouldn't be any problems." Although she said so, there was also a trace of worry in her eyes. The will of heaven will not come easily. After all, even heaven itself needs to abide by the rules of heaven and earth. This time it can send down a ray of its own will, which means that someone has violated the rules of heaven and earth, so it can come naturally. But why? The young master went to the border area, but the will of heaven came to the border area. If he did something that violated the rules of heaven and earth, it seems that it is only related to Yayu. How is the other spiritual consciousness in your body now? Wei Mengru suddenly asked. Bairuoxi shook her head and said, "It has not awakened yet, but it seems to have alarmed her when the will of heaven came." Among the several great masters who have combined with the Dao, Gong Lianyu is probably the most sensitive to the affairs of the heaven. After all, she had noticed the abnormality of the heaven 10,000 years ago, so she cut off her own Dao, severed the connection with the heaven, and turned to combine with the human Dao. And now that the will of heaven has appeared, Gong Lianyu can roughly feel it even in her sleep. At this time, Ye Lingxian, who was not far from the two of them, suddenly whispered, "The will of heaven has disappeared." Beside her, a tall woman in a loose black robe stood quietly behind her, always secretly guarding Ye Lingxian like her guardian spirit. A smile appeared on Bairuoxi's cold and weak face. Sister Lingxian has a physique that is born with affinity with spiritual energy. Since you said so, I feel relieved. But why did the will of heaven suddenly come? Ye Qian suddenly questioned softly. The girls present also showed doubtful expressions. Only Wei Mengru suddenly raised her head and stared at the white light that was gradually disappearing. If we talk about the reason why the will of heaven came, there are probably many possibilities. But if it is combined with the place where it came in the border area, the scope is much narrower. Yayu used to fall from a genius to a waste, and then the heaven sent down his luck. After he became a person with great luck, he gradually began to rise and became the top genius in Juzhu. Yayu may have been attacked abnormally in the border area, so the will of heaven came down. As for the abnormal attack, because of the restrictions of the rules of heaven and earth, the great powers of the Hedeo realm cannot easily take action. This is not difficult to infer from the fact that there can only be one Hedeo realm in each life. After all, the means of the great powers of the Hedeo are too monstrous. Wei Mengru's eyes flickered slightly, as if she thought of something, and her eyes widened slightly. A great power of the Hedeo attacked Yayu. If the fate is not destroyed, it is difficult for the Son of Heaven to die, because the Son of Heaven will always find a way to escape from the dark. But what if the great power of the Hedeo forcibly intervenes? The answer may be that the will of heaven will come, it will stop, or protect the Son of Heaven. In this case, Yayu may have died. Or is it that the Hedeo realm first broke the rules of heaven and earth, so the will of heaven can also come and protect the Son of Heaven? Wei Mengru looked at the raindrops falling outside the house, and her thoughts seemed to gradually empty with the raindrops. At this moment, she suddenly noticed a slightly abrupt gaze, and subconsciously turned her head to look. It was Miss Fei who had just come to Tianhewen this morning to find the young master. She leaned lazily against the pillar behind her with her arms folded, staring at her. When Wei Mengru glanced at Lan Feiying, she quickly smiled and nodded, and then retracted her gaze. Slightly lowering her eyelids, her beautiful eyes seemed a little dim under the dim sky. Is Yayu dead? The Queen of the Demon Realm decisively took action to get rid of Yayu, and on the other side, Musian and the first seat of the Demon Realm had just arrived on a flying sword. When he saw that the will of the heavenly Dao was caught and crushed by the Queen of the Demon Realm, his eyes finally had a little more surprise. Even if it was just a strand of wool that was separated from the heavenly Dao, it had a natural restraining effect on cultivators. As a result, the Queen of the Demon Realm actually ignored the backlash of the heavenly Dao and directly killed Yayu and Yaoshan. It seems that Yayu's luck is really running out. Musian said to himself. The strength of the backlash of the heavenly Dao should be related to the luck of the chosen son. The higher the luck, the harder it is to kill the chosen son. Moreover, if the great Hedeo forcefully takes action and breaks the rules of heaven and earth, the will of the heavenly Dao will be able to descend and backlash on him. On the contrary, if the luck of the chosen son is much lower, the backlash of the heavenly Dao will be much smaller. Your Majesty, are you okay? Musian quickly noticed a trace of blood flowing from the fingertips of the Demon Queen, which was falling to the ground along the fingertips. He immediately stepped forward to ask. She killed Yayu and was partially attacked by the heavenly Dao. However, in this abyss, even the will of the heavenly Dao cannot descend. The will of the heavenly Dao just now was just a clone of it. Ye Kingzin's voice came from the bottom of Musian's heart, and her voice was a little complicated. In the abyss, even the will of the heavenly Dao cannot descend? Musian was extremely shocked. The Demon Queen stared at the sky, as if she saw the will of the heavenly Dao that was gradually disappearing through the abyss palace. After a while, she retracted her gaze and said faintly, "It's no wonder that the chosen son of the heavenly Dao has such talent and luck. Yayu was able to transform himself from a useless person in the past. I think it was because of the blessing of the luck of the heavenly Dao." When Musian said this, he took a look at the luck on the personal interface. However, this glance made him stunned for a moment. Strange, my luck value has not changed at all. If Yayu died, the luck value should become his luck. After all, Yayu died because he was involved. But now his luck value is still 95, and there is no change. Last time in Lianji sect, after Xiao Hua was executed by the people of the Law Enforcement Hall, Xiao Hua's luck as the chosen son was transferred to Musian's natural furnace. And now Yu should be the same. But now, there is no change in his luck. Could it be? Musian's eyes flickered slightly, looking at the empty Jiyuan palace in front of him, and suddenly said, "Your Majesty, how did Yu die?" The worldly python I summoned devoured his and his teacher's spiritual consciousness together, the queen of the demon realm said lightly. "Do you suspect he's still alive?" The queen of the demon realm seemed to have guessed Musian's thoughts. Her voice was as gentle and indifferent as usual, making people suspect that the backlash of the heavenly Dao just now did not have much impact on her. Musian was silent for a moment and said, "Maybe." Before the luck value completely disappeared, the heavenly Dao could always let the chosen son survive by luck in various ways. But Yu died too quickly, and he didn't even have the slightest room to fight back. Even if a great master of the Hedao could indeed kill Yu like killing an ant, when Yu was swallowed by the worldly python, the will of the heavenly Dao had already descended. If Yu's luck value had completely fallen to the bottom, the will of the heavenly Dao would not have appeared. This shows that Yu's luck has not yet reached the point where he will die. Outside the Jiyuan palace, dark lead-colored clouds slowly pushed in from afar. After condensing together, thunder roared, as if brewing a rainstorm. "Maybe your feeling is not wrong." The queen of the demon realm paused, glanced at the bloodstains on her fingertips that had gradually healed, and said, "If he was killed directly, the backlash of the heavenly Dao would not be just this little bit." Musian's eyes were more thoughtful, and he suddenly asked, "Yu still has a heavenly Dao Qi on him?" "Your Majesty, do you know where that heavenly Dao Qi went?" The queen of the demon realm glanced at him and shook her head, "I have never seen it." Musian raised his eyebrows slightly, and silence is golden. He suddenly thought of an absurd possibility. Maybe, Yu is dead, but Yu is still alive? If this is the case, it can explain why Yu's luck value was not absorbed by the Tiansheng furnace after his death, and his personal interface did not respond at all. Yao Shan is an alchemist, and he may have a golden cicada escaping pill on him. In addition, after the will of the heavenly Dao descended at that time, the queen of the demon realm would naturally focus on the will of the heavenly Dao. If it is assumed that Yao Shan took over Yu's body, what would he do next? Escape from Dongzhou? With his current injuries, it is absolutely impossible to do so. The safest place now is Lianji sect. No matter how strong the queen of the demon realm is, she can't chase to Lianji sect, because there is the protection of concubine Shang Yan. But no matter what, this trip to the border area has been successfully completed. Although it is still unknown what effect the drop of blood of the immortal who is suspected to have ascended to the fairy land has, since it can be absorbed by the natural furnace, there must be a way to digest it. After returning this time, I will slowly investigate. Musian pondered for a moment and said, "No matter what, I still thank Her Majesty for helping me this time. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid that this junior would be in danger this time." Even if it's not said that it's in danger, at least Yeking's spiritual consciousness that descended from the heaven will probably no longer be able to survive. The queen of the demon realm smiled charmingly, and her beautiful eyes stared at him. "You don't have to thank me, I should thank you." Musian's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt, and he didn't understand what the other party said. "If it weren't for you, concubine Shang Yan would not have allowed me to devour the essence of the first generation of the Demon King." The queen of the demon realm spoke faintly. But her tone gradually changed from the original tenderness to coldness. "No one knows what concubine Shang Yan has been doing and what she wants to do in the past 10,000 years, but since she awakened the memory of her previous life that day, the queen of the demon realm has thought of many things. The more she thought about it, the more she thought about it, and the more she felt that concubine Shang Yan was unfathomable. In order to allow herself to retreat, she did not hesitate to give her the essence of the first generation demon emperor, so that she could have the possibility of breaking through the Hedeo realm, should it be said that concubine Shangyan was confident enough in her own strength, or that she was under the influence a bad move. Based on her understanding of concubine Shangyan, the everlasting sect leader has never made any misjudgments. It's really upsetting. The queen of the demon realm narrowed her beautiful eyes, her beautiful crimson eyes flickering. Then, as if she thought of something, she looked at Musian with a smile. Although this beautiful snake's every frown and smile were breathtakingly beautiful, at this moment Musian was stared at by her and felt that his heart was furry. He coughed lightly and changed the subject, speaking of which, does your majesty know that in the Jiyuan palace? Who is the owner? The queen of the demon realm was indeed attracted by his topic and elegantly rolled up a strand of hair. I don't know who the owner of Jiyuan palace is, but the person buried in the coffin may be the first immortal who ascended to the fairyland in the early days of chaos. The Hedeo realm is to merge with one of the three realms of heaven, earth, and human beings and become a part of the world. And above the Hedeo, one can glimpse the threshold of immortal, which is the emergence of immortality. So far, no one has emerged in Kyushu, and the main reason is not only restricted by the rules of heaven and earth. More importantly, the Hedeo realm has reached its limit, and even the Deo of heaven cannot stop the power of Hedeo. If it is allowed to break through again, it will be above the three realms of heaven, earth, and humans, and resonate with the Deo. Actually, there were rumors that in the past, there was a powerful Hedeo who broke through the limit and entered the realm of immortality, but he disappeared without any reason, the queen of the demon realm said. Hedeo Daegong disappeared without any reason. Who could have kidnapped Hedeo Daegong? Musian used his rants to cover up his inner horror and said, people often say that one becomes an immortal after becoming a human being. Could it be that he ascends to heaven? There is also no ascension realm in heaven. Yekingzin's voice came from Musian's body. So far, the only monk I know who is suspected of being in the ascension realm is the Lord of Heaven. After the three of them talked for a while, the queen of the demon realm suddenly said casually, in 3 days, I will be in seclusion for a period of time, and I'm afraid I won't be able to see you again after that. Musian came back from his thoughts and said respectfully, although your majesty is in seclusion, with the 13 seats of the demon world here, I think the demon world will definitely be prosperous. It's not the demon world that I'm worried about. The queen of the demon realm was silent for a moment, glanced at him casually, and said, what if I say, I hope you will follow me back to the demon realm? The first lady on the side raised her eyebrows slightly, as if she thought of something bad, and turned her face away silently. Musian, after hesitating for a moment, declined politely, there is no shortage of juniors in the demon world, but if I were in the Lianji sect, once there was any important news in the sect, I would be the first to do so. Time to report to the demon world. This was impeccable, but the queen of the demon realm was obviously not very satisfied. But she did not force anyone to make things difficult, but continued, there should be other immortals in Jiyuan Palace. Do you plan to leave here with me first, or do you want to stay here? Musian pondered for a moment, I am still a Dongzhou monk on the surface. If I leave with you, there is no guarantee that the news will not spread to the outside world. The queen of the demon realm nodded slightly, in that case, you can leave this place on your own after this. If you have anything else to do, find me with that bronze mirror. But there are only 3 days left, in 3 more days, I will be in seclusion. At the end of the sentence, she said softly, of course, before that, there are still things that need to be dealt with. For some reason, when Musian heard this sentence, he felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't explain the reason. Seeing that the queen of the demon realm had turned around and left, the first lady bowed politely in the direction of Musian, and looked at him a few more times with strange eyes. This look was like looking at some rare creature. Musian smiled politely at her, but felt that something was wrong with her eyes. But he didn't think about it too much. After all, there were more important things to deal with at the moment. The immortality in Ji Yuan Palace should be more than just that drop of essence and blood. Your Majesty, weren't you planning to take Mr. Mu back to the demon world before? Why are you leaving him there now? The first seed turned into a stream of light and caught up with the queen of the demon realm. Staring at this charming beauty, she finally couldn't help but ask. I thought there was no guarantee what would happen after seclusion. If he stayed with me, I would feel more at ease. But since he doesn't want to, there's no need to force him. The queen of the demon realm spoke softly. The first seed was thoughtful and suddenly said, then does your Majesty plan to return to the demon world now? Naturally, it's time to prepare to refine the first generation demon emperor's essence. The queen of the demon realm licked her red lips, raised her bright red eyes, and stared quietly in the direction of the Liangyi sect. But before that, I still have something to ask our dear Lord. Of course, I will not go directly to Liangyi section after all. In Liangyi sect, no one can be the opponent of that woman, even if they are both in the Hedao realm. So we have to find another way. The ground in the border area seemed to be shaking slightly. Silence returned to the abyss, and Musian turned around and walked towards the ancient and mysterious-looking coffin in front of the palace. Be careful, this coffin is a bit mysterious. Although you have absorbed the essence and blood, there is no guarantee that there will be no other dangers, Ye Qingxin reminded him in his heart. Musian nodded slightly. By the way, since the senior is in my natural furnace, will you have a special feeling for that drop of essence and blood? He suddenly asked. Ye Qingxin shook his head. I have already used my spiritual sense to scan that drop of essence and blood before, but I can't see through it. Just a drop of essence and blood has such a terrifying power. I don't know what kind of powerful strength the person in the coffin has. Maybe it is really left by the immortal who ascended to the fairyland at the beginning? Musian felt a little emotional in his heart, and at the same time confirmed whether there were other inheritances left in the palace. Not long after, he found a medicinal herb in the corner of the palace. It has naturally formed an imperial-level medicinal herb without any cultivation. It's a bit rare, Ye Qingxin said in surprise. Sure enough, there will be no ordinary items in the Ji Yuan Palace. Things that seem inconspicuous may be great opportunities, Musian couldn't help but exclaimed. He put the imperial medicinal material into the ring, then hesitated and said, Sister Ye, don't you blame me. If you are talking about Ye Yu, then it's not your fault. This is the hatred caused by his jealousy, Ye Qingxin said calmly. But it doesn't make much sense to mention it now, she said softly. Musian was silent. However, there was still a lingering sense of disharmony in his heart. If the queen of the demon realm did not lie, then where did the heavenly Dao Qi go after Ye Yu died? And his own luck value did not change after Ye Yu died. If Ye Yu really died, his luck value should not be at 95 points. Boom. Musian was thinking about this in his mind, and suddenly a terrifying breath came from the Ji Yuan Palace, which completely broke Musian's thoughts. Immediately afterwards, a soft and charming voice that seemed to resonate with the Dao resounded across the land of Dongzhou. Shang Yanfei, you framed me, don't you have anything to say? The Liangyi sect, which had always been peaceful in the past, trembled violently at this moment, and the ground between the mountains appeared densely cracked. Almost at that moment, the powerful people from all over Zhou were awakened. Some old monsters who were in seclusion in the cave suddenly opened their eyes. They were extremely angry at first, and then rushed out of the cave. After reacting to the identity of the person who spoke, their anger gradually subsided, and they were silent, turning into a kind of fear from the heart. At this moment, in the Liangyi Peak, Lan Murian was playing chess with her master. She obviously heard the voice just now, and subconsciously looked at the woman in front of her. Master. It must be said that this is indeed a great beauty. Musian had seen her several times in the past. Every time he saw her, he would forget Shang Yanfei's face, but he always had a stunning feeling for her beauty. Don't worry, play chess first. Shang Yanfei tapped the table lightly with her knuckles, as if she was thinking seriously about something. Sensing that the noble and cold disciple was staring at her with a rare concern, she raised her fingertips and changed the position of the chess piece. This is almost enough to win. However, at this moment, along with the vibration of the ground, the chessboard in Lianji Peak shook slightly, and the chess pieces fell. In Tianhe Garden, Bai Ruoxi, who was meditating in front of the soft couch with her eyes closed, slowly opened her eyes. The pair of beautiful eyes that used to be cold and weak were already stained with a touch of star-like gorgeous brilliance. In the holy land of Yaokai, Yao Meng was originally looking up at the Tiandan phoenix tree in front of her, and as the vibration sound fell, she slightly turned her eyes and glanced in the direction of the border. On this day, countless cultivators were alarmed. After the death of the first generation of demon emperors, the demon queen succeeded to the throne. Since then, the demon world and Dongzhou have been at peace, but now the queen who is worshipped as a god by the demon world actually opened her mouth to find Shang Yanfei. If two Hedeo realm masters really take action, other forces should not think of sitting back and watching. And in the hearts of these anxious people, countless eyes subconsciously looked towards the direction of Lianji sect. They knew that the person the demon queen was looking for was Shang Yanfei, and before she showed up, the demon queen would not give up with her strong and domineering personality. Knock knock knock. Under the gaze of countless eyes, Shang Yanfei's knuckles suddenly paused and she raised her eyes inadvertently. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 369. Musian still doesn't know what happened outside. At this moment, he is still patrolling the palace to see if he has overlooked any immortal fate. After searching for a while, I suddenly felt that the entire Jiyuan palace was shaking violently, accompanied by vast spiritual energy fluctuations. Why is there so much noise outside? Musian finally couldn't help but muttered to himself. The queen of the demon realm is not really going to fight with my sect master's sister, is she? If a fight really breaks out, he really doesn't know who to support. After all, they are all wives, and the palms and backs of their hands are full of flesh. However, both of them were in the Taoist realm, and their experience and conduct far exceeded him. Presumably, they knew how to stop when it was enough, so there was no need for him to worry about it. When Musian thought of this, he felt a little relieved. At this time, divine light burst out from his body, and then, red gold light spots condensed into a graceful body and appeared in his field of vision. The black and red skirt fluttered, and Ye Qingxin's flawless face came into view. Wisps of flames danced around her. She stepped on a pair of exquisite and small embroidered shoes, like flying fire elves. It seems that the queen of the demon realm's visit to the border area may be related to concubine Shang Yan, Ye Qingxin said. Musian said softly, the demon realm and Dongzhou have always been at odds, but the queen of the demon realm is a very smart woman. She should know that fighting directly against the sect master will only allow other forces to reap the benefits. While talking to Ye Qingxin, he had already scanned everything in the palace, and there was indeed nothing else. Musian turned his eyes to the ancient coffin in front of him again. After thinking for a moment, he stepped forward to activate Naja and tried to put the coffin into Naja. However, Naja could not accommodate the coffin, which was only the size of a person. It's strange. This coffin doesn't look big, but my ring can't accommodate it. Musian said to himself in surprise. You didn't even let go of the coffin here. Even Ye Qingxin was speechless, but then, a trace of doubt also flashed across her eyes. Strangely, Musian's Naja is at the 6th level. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be difficult to put it into a coffin. There is no formation on this coffin, do you want to try again, Ye Qingxin said. If Musian hadn't mentioned this, she might have ignored this, which is the most easily overlooked thing. Next, Musian tried again, but Naja couldn't bear the coffin at all, and there were faint signs of breaking into pieces. Muzian hurriedly put away Naja. It still doesn't work, there is something really weird about this coffin. He thought for a moment, then grabbed the sides of the coffin with both hands and lifted it up. The huge weight directly pressed on his body, but Muzian's Tao was to strengthen his physique, so he didn't feel it was too strenuous and just carried it behind his back. Sister, yeah, let's get out of here. Muzian turned his head to look at Ye Qingxin, only to see Ye Qingxin's red lips slightly parted, looking at him with a bit of surprise. Sister, yeah, Muzian shouted again. Ye Qingxin finally came back from her thoughts, looked at Muzian a few more times as if looking at a monster, and finally nodded slightly, turning into a ray of spiritual consciousness and returning to Muzian's body. The weight of the coffin cannot be accommodated by the 6th grade Naja, and it is absolutely impossible for ordinary monks to carry the coffin. But Muzian not only carried it behind his back, but he didn't even seem to put much effort into it. This was a bit strange. Muzian naturally didn't know what Ye Qingxin was thinking at this moment. He carried the Ji Yuan coffin on his back and walked along the original path of Ji Yuan's exit with his sword. Although she hadn't reached the exit yet, Ye Qingxin had vaguely noticed something and said softly, "There are more than 2 Hedeo realm figures outside." 2 or more? Could it be the sect leader's sister and Ling Long, or other forces from Kyushu are also among them? Muzian's mind gradually became more active. At this time, Ye Qingxin continued to speak, "Anyway, no matter who it is, they should know enough is enough. You should return to Lianji sect first." Muzian said His thoughts were the same as Ye Qingxin's. Although the queen of the demon realm was arrogant, she was by no means irrational. There is no need to say more about concubine Shangyan. That woman is as unfathomable as the ravine on Naxi's chest and will not get angry easily. However, if someone touches them at this time, they may be in serious trouble. Muzian chuckled secretly, carrying Ji Yuan's coffin on his back. His sword turned into a stream of light and swept towards the exit of the cave. The queen of the demon realm stood in mid-air, her luxurious dress fluttering in the cold wind, her eyes looking directly in the direction of the Liangyi sect. She didn't know what concubine Shangyan's purpose was, but no matter what, she couldn't retreat into seclusion so easily. At least before that, concubine Shangyan must be forced out of the darkness. Although her true body cannot go directly to Lianji sect, in this way, the other party also has to come out to fight. Just need to pay some small price. But looking at it like this, isn't it enough to let her out? The queen of the demon realm narrowed her bright red eyes. Although she was naturally charming, the pressure she exuded at this moment made the entire border area faintly shake. "I haven't seen you in the border area for a long time. I didn't expect you to make such a big noise just after arriving in the border area." But just when the queen of the demon realm was about to speak again, she suddenly heard a cold and soft voice coming from her ear. Under the canopy of the border territory, a beauty wearing a palace dress appeared in front of the queen of the demon realm at some point. She is tall and cool, wearing a black and white palace skirt, which outlines her exquisite and convex sexy figure. Her breasts are small, and her long hair is like a waterfall. She seems to have come from another world, and there is no trace of it at all. Debut line. An ancient bronze sword emerged silently from behind, exuding an ancient aura and flashing with cold light. If Muzian had been present, he would have sighed with regret while marveling at the woman's temperament and appearance. Why did Ruoxi's breast volume become smaller after she evolved? Gong Lianyu. There was a trace of surprise in the eyebrows of the queen of the demon realm, and she looked at the beauty in front of her a few more times. "I didn't expect that concubine Shangyan didn't come, but you came first. I am the one who should be surprised. Your aura is much stronger than before." Bai Ruoxi, or rather Gong Lianyu, who was awakened earlier, narrowed her beautiful eyes and stared at the charming figure of the queen of the demon realm. She could clearly feel that although the queen of the demon realm was a member of the Harmony, after devouring the essence of the first-generation demon emperor, Her aura had the faint intention of becoming stronger. Concubine Shangyan didn't dare to come out, but I asked you to come see me? But I have nothing to do with you. The queen of the demon realm's voice was soft and numb, but it gave people a kind of awe-inspiring majesty. I don't have anything to do with you. Gong Lianyu chuckled softly. I was just awakened by the noise you made earlier, so I stopped by to take a look. Dongzhou is not like the demon realm. If there is such a big fight, be careful and you won't be able to stop it in the end. Although it was an understatement, there was a hint of coldness in his tone. Those who can step into the Hedeo realm are all beings with the best talents and luck in their own life. Although the queen of the demon realm is powerful, the past master of the Sword Palace is no less than her opponent. At this moment, she is awakened from her slumber. Naturally, very bad mood. The biting cold wind blew by, and the rain fell misty. As Gong Lianyu finished speaking, the queen of the demon realm showed a charming smile. Whether it can be settled or not is not up to you. Since you are not here to see me, then please do as you please. Gong Lianyu glanced at the queen of the demon realm, but a rare faint smile appeared on her beautiful face. She looked at the queen of the demon realm as if she were looking at a defeated dog. The so-called power is not what she is pursuing now. Although she was awakened by the noise made by the queen of the demon realm today, she was not really angry. It's better to say thank you to her. After all, she had been hoping to wake up as soon as possible since she fell asleep that day. I don't know how he is doing now. He has never left the abyss until now. Maybe he is trapped in the abyss? Where are you planning to go? Further ahead is the demon world. Just as Gong Lianyu was about to step into the abyss, the queen of the demon realm inadvertently frowned. She vaguely guessed something and spoke softly to stop her. Is there any place in Kyushu that I cannot go to? Gong Lianyu glanced slightly at the queen of the demon realm. Their eyes met, raindrops fell on their bodies, but they couldn't soak their clothes at all. After being silent for an unknown amount of time, Gong Lianyu showed a charming smile and continued, besides, I don't have any interest in your demon world. It's just that you have woken me up from my rare sleep, and I also want to take the opportunity to meet my Taoist companion. Your Taoist companion. The queen of the demon realm is suspended in mid-air. Her tall and graceful figure is looming in the pink demon mist. Although it is difficult to see clearly, there is something arousing that makes people want to penetrate into the demon mist to see her charming face clearly. Magic. The cold wind vaguely blew up the dress, vaguely revealing a pair of slender legs as white as jade, as white and delicate as gelatin without losing beauty. The fever was real, but there were too few people in the world who dared to look up at her. If I remember correctly, the master of the Sword Palace built the Heavenly Palace alone, and there was never any Taoist companion during this period. How come after 2 lives, a Taoist companion suddenly and inexplicably appeared? The queen of the demon realm looked back inadvertently, and her soft and seductive voice sounded in the sky above Ji Yuan, and there seemed to be some evil in her voice. Gong Lianyu's eyes grew colder. I have never seen the queen of the demon realm being interested in other people's feelings in the past. Why is she so concerned about my affairs today? Even a fool can detect the unkindness of the queen of the demon realm at this moment, let alone Gong Lianyu as the person involved. It's just that from the past to the present, she and the queen of the demon realm were on good terms, but she didn't know that the other party was somewhat hostile to her today. Where did it come from? If I remember correctly, the palace master's current body is the child of that girl from the Bai family and a monk, right? Bai Ruoxi's Taoist monk, if I remember correctly, is just a monk under 20. The queen of the demon realm said to herself, could it be that, you also like that monk? The word "yeah" made Gong Lianyu narrow her eyes, with a hint of danger in her eyes. What do you want to say? Under the gloomy sky, there seemed to be faint thunder. 2 great powers, one is charming and coquettish, like a queen who enchants all living beings, while the other is more cold, arrogant, and gorgeous, like plum blossoms in the cold winter, as sharp as a bone. In the intertwined gazes, there was a hint of ambiguity in the charming eyes of the queen of the demon realm. Then, she raised the corner of her mouth slightly, and a beautiful smile appeared on her face. Nothing, she smiled lightly. The understated tone made Gong Lianyu's eyes cold. She glanced at the queen of the demon realm, covered her mouth and chuckled, "That's right, there is nothing to say between you and me. I think you don't know what love feels like. After all, you have been pursuing immortality all your life." The queen of the demon realm smiled lightly. The natural furnace tripod that can continue to advance with the improvement of realm is indeed worthy of the palace master's love. This statement is to show you know nothing about love, you just want his body, and you say it so high-soundingly. Seeing that Gong Lianyu didn't want to pay attention to her at all, the queen of the demon realm took a step back and became more and more angry. She asked casually, "Speaking of which, are you used to the hydrangea magic weapon that I gave to the palace master before?" Hydrangea. Gong Lianyu was stunned for a moment. Her attention was completely attracted by the queen of the demon realm, and there was a hint of doubt in her eyes. Before she could ask, the queen of the demon realm slowly spread out the palm of her right hand. In the palm, a beautiful purple flower bloomed silently, charming and moving. Gong Lianyu stared at the hydrangea in the palm of the queen of the demon realm with doubtful eyes, and then, as if she thought of something, she narrowed her eyes a little. Then, she placed her slender hand on her chest and slowly took out a hydrangea from the pair of snow-white waves swaying gently in the cold wind. Gong Lianyu had Bairuoxi's memory after waking up, so she naturally knew the origin of this hydrangea. This was given to her by Musian, which can shield her own demonic energy. At first, Bairuoxi thought that this hydrangea was found by Musian in the ring of the first generation of the Demon King, but now it seems. A very terrible thought flashed through Gong Lianyu's mind. This hydrangea was begged from me by that kid before. He really loves his Taoist partner. He tried every possible way to get this magic weapon that can block the evil spirit. As if to verify Gong Lianyu's guess, the queen of the demon realm casually told the truth. For his Taoist partner, he asked the queen of the demon realm for a magic weapon that can block the evil spirit. If this plot is slightly modified, it will be a complete N.T.R theme. Gong Lianyu's beautiful eyes gradually turned cold. It seems that the queen of the demon realm is quite interested in my Taoist partner. What did he exchange with you? The queen of the demon realm smiled charmingly. Guess. Boom. The bronze ancient sword behind Gong Lianyu exuded a dazzling light like the sun, floating behind her, majestic and dazzling. The queen of the demon realm lightly raised her fingertips, and the demon mist behind her seemed to emit a dark glow, which also set off her red nail art more attractive. However, at this moment, a green lotus bloomed silently between the two of them, and abruptly separated the dangerous murderous aura between the two. I didn't expect that Shang Yanfei hadn't appeared yet, but the palace master arrived first. I thought you would wait until Bairuoxi returned to the void realm before waking up. A voice like an immortal sound came slowly above the Jiyuan. The immortal sound seemed to contain a special Taoist rhyme, which made the cultivators who were originally quite uneasy near the Jiyuan gradually calm down. Then, their eyes gradually became more awed and fanatical. Some cultivators may not be able to see a great master of the Hedao even if they practice for a lifetime, but today they saw 2 or 3 great masters of the Hedao in succession. As the immortal sound fell, Gong Lianyu's attention shifted from the queen of the demon realm to the green-skirted beauty who appeared in the air at some point. Kingdi? Why are you here? Aware of Gong Lianyu's undisguised indifference and hostility, and glimpsing the enchanting eyes of the queen of the demon realm staring at her, Yao Meng's mouth curled up slightly. A faint smile hung on her beautiful face. Whoever the palace master is here to see, I am here to see him. I don't mean to disturb you two, please do as you please. When Yao Meng finished speaking, her eyes fell in the direction of Ji Yuan. She originally planned to come to Ji Yuan after dealing with the affairs of Yao Kai, but since she had been alarmed by the queen of the demon realm, she might as well go to see what was going on there first. Is King D planning to rashly break into my border and fight against the demon world? The queen of the demon realm said coldly. The pair of beautiful eyes that used to be charming and seductive became even colder, and there was a rare feeling of depression in her heart. She didn't expect that she not only failed to force Shang Yanfei out this time, but also attracted a bunch of vixens one after another. Gong Lianyu is really a vixen. And the Green Emperor, although everyone in the world worships the Green Emperor as a pure fairy, this fairy has been a bit treacherous since the beginning, and now she has seduced Muzian and made him crazy. Can this be called a fairy? Yao Meng's beautiful jade feet stepped on the void, slightly tilted her eyes, and a smile flashed in her eyes. I'm just looking for my Taoist partner, you can't bring up the demon world. Besides, I was able to suppress the first generation of demon kings that day, and if I wanted, I could also suppress you in the pilgrimage hall. Gong Lianyu sneered, Taoist partner? If these words were heard by the cultivators in Zhuzhou, I'm afraid they would all be laughed at. The dignified Yao Qi fairy actually took the initiative to seduce a young cultivator who already had a Taoist partner. If people who didn't know, they might think that the fairy had some special fetish for the little boy younger than her. This seat and he are truly in love, and feelings should not be based on who comes first, but whether they truly love each other. What do you think, Palace Master? Yao Meng smiled faintly and spoke in a voice like the sound of nature. This is a high-level king player, who actually described the green N.T.R so beautiful and elegant, and for a moment, people could not find a reason to refute it. The queen of the demon realm glanced at her lightly, and her sweet laughter echoed between heaven and earth, with a bewitching charm. The Green Emperor is right. She said lightly, so I think the Green Emperor should not know how gentle the Taoist partner you mentioned is in front of this seat. If it is according to what you said, this seat seems to consider taking Muzian back to the demon world after he leaves the Ji Yuan. Yao Meng's beautiful face had no expression, admiring the magnificent scene in front of the Ji Yuan. After a while, she retracted her gaze, her beautiful eyes looked at the charming and graceful demon queen, and then glanced at the awe-inspiring and beautiful sword palace master, and smiled in a calm and contemptuous tone. So, you probably don't know how well behaved he was when he called King Di's sister in bed. The air suddenly stagnated. Even the demon queen's eyes froze. Among the people present, only King Di was qualified to say this. The demon queen always said that she wanted to hum him, but she hadn't even touched Muzian's hand. Not to mention Gong Lianyu, although Bairuoxi and Muzian had had physical contact, Gong Lianyu, as another spiritual consciousness, had never had intimate contact with Muzian. Everyone was just talking nonsense, but King Di really slept with him, and more than once, and now her cauldron is even full of Muzian's spiritual energy. Yao Meng stared at the two of them, her red lips slightly parted, and she said in a calm and indifferent tone. You can wait until he leaves and ask him who he chose. When she said this, she glanced back inadvertently. In the depths of the abyss, Muzian happened to be flying out slowly on a sword with a coffin on his back. And at that moment, the atmosphere between the three people also fell into a strange silence. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 370. The border area seemed extremely quiet at the moment, and it started to rain under the gloomy sky. The three great powers of the Hedeo realm stood opposite each other, and their every move seemed to be filled with terrifying pressure. Although they were extremely majestic, no monk dared to raise their head. From the beginning, some monks had even smelled the danger and burned their spiritual energy and swords in advance to escape. The queen of the demon realm narrowed her beautiful eyes and said coldly, if I remember correctly, the Qing emperor used the purifying green lotus to suppress the first-generation demon emperor. After thousands of years of wear and tear, there is only a ray of spiritual consciousness left. Yao Meng frowned inadvertently and said, what do you want to say? The queen of the demon realm inadvertently raised the corners of her lips and said calmly, "If I remember correctly, at that time, Xiaomu went to the restricted area with the saint of the restricted area. I think they came to find the water of reincarnation for you. After that, the two of you he went to the Yaokai Holy Land again to wait for the heavenly pill phoenix tree to bear fruit. From this point of view, his dual cultivation with you was just to reshape your body. As for calling you Sister Kingdi, it's not something worth showing off. The more you lack something, the more you want to show off." I think this sentence is vividly and exquisitely reflected in Kingdi. Although it was an understatement, Yao Meng's usually indifferent eyes gradually became a little colder. But her expression remained unchanged, and the coldness in her eyes disappeared in an instant, and a beautiful and friendly smile appeared instead, and she said, "I did treat him as a junior at the beginning, but after that, I gradually developed feelings." At this time, Gong Lianyu suddenly sneered, "Is the so-called relationship based on taking someone else's husband? If Kingdi's words spread, I'm afraid he will be ridiculed by monks all over the world." Yao Meng glanced at Gong Lianyu lightly, then glanced at the queen of the demon realm, and said lightly, "If I am trying to steal someone else's husband, then what's the matter with the palace master? You and Bairuoxi are two spiritual consciousnesses. It seems a bit inappropriate to recognize yourself as his Taoist companion so openly, right?" The queen of the demon realm raised her eyebrows and said coldly, "Let's not talk about Gong Lianyu's matter for now, but doesn't Qing Emperor deny his previous actions of seizing her husband?" Yao Meng smiled lightly and said, "I have told this matter to others in Nan'an before, so naturally I will not deny it now, not to mention that Miss Bai also knows about it." She paused and glanced at the queen of the demon realm inadvertently. "However, what does the matter between Mu Lang and me have to do with our queen of the demon realm? Why do you care so much about this matter? Or is it that the queen of the demon world has taken a fancy to the natural cauldron of a monk in the realm of refining gods, and she just stopped me from going to find him? Is she just jealous? Killing people and punishing the heart can be said to be the real killing and killing the heart. This can be said so that the queen of the demon realm has no point to refute. I admit that I fell in love with Bairuoxi, and she also knows about it, but this is our family matter. What does it have to do with you, the queen of the demon realm? You, a person who has been in the demon world and has never left it a few times, why did you stop me from going to Jiyuan?" At this moment, there was only a sudden sound, and the air seemed to be shaking vaguely. Gong Lianyu's gorgeous white dress fluttered in the wind, and a pair of snow-white slender legs vaguely appeared, with a hint of coldness in her eyes. "Qing Emperor is the most beautiful person in the world. If you want to find a Taoist companion and you can't find any man in this world, but you have to choose him, do you have to go against me?" In the abyss, a cold wind blew by. Yao Meng smiled slightly and said lightly, "It would be fine if Miss Bai said this, but you and Mu Lang have nothing to do with each other. Besides, he is very powerful in all aspects. Why can't we choose him as a Taoist companion?" Gong Lianyu's eyes grew colder, and although Yao Meng was smiling, it was obvious that he was in a bad mood as well. Boom! The next moment, a deafening roar came from the entire sky, as if the entire Kyushu was shaking. Gong Lingyu slowly pulled out the ancient bronze sword from the ravine. The next moment, the bronze sword in her hand emitted a golden light as bright as day. However, at this time, a green lotus flower bloomed in the air. When the green lotus blooms, it seems to contain the creation of heaven and earth, and its green light quietly covers most of the sky. The queen of the demon realm narrowed her beautiful eyes and looked at the battle between the two powerful warriors. She hooked her fingertips and the python of the world quietly emerged from the demon mist, seemingly ready to move. The two sisters are fighting over Brother Mu's affairs. It's better for Senior not to interfere too much. However, at this moment, her clear and melodious voice suddenly came from under the sky. The queen of the demon realm raised her head and saw a girl wearing a gorgeous light purple dress. Her long hair was fluttering in the cold wind, She had a round and delicate face, and a pair of clear and bright purple peach blossom eyes. She had her hands behind her back and a golden chain wrapped around her behind her back. The long skirt is not very luxurious, but it just brings out the youthful beauty that this age should have. Her hair is loose and there is a slight smile on her face. A trace of doubt flashed in the charming and passionate eyes of the Queen of the Demon Realm, and she said, "Saint of the Forbidden Zone? Why are you here to join in the fun? There seems to be quite a commotion in Jiyuan. I'm a little worried that Brother Mu will come over and take a look." Ye Lingxian smiled very politely, glanced in the direction of Jiyuan, and said softly, "But it seems like Brother Mu is still in Jiyuan. If it were an ordinary cultivator, even a simple movement or even a look from the Queen of the Demon Realm would probably put great pressure on her." However, Ye Lingxian still had a polite smile on her face. Although she was still in the God-refining realm, she was also in the Hedeo realm in the past, and she had stepped into the Hedeo realm more than once. For Ye Lingxian, the Queen of the Demon Realm does not have much pressure at all. What's more, at this moment, Ye Lingxuan's attention was entirely on Musian. "If I remember correctly, the Ye Yu who stepped into the abyss before was your brother, right? He has a very bad relationship with the brother Mu you mentioned, but it seems that you prefer Musian, who has no blood relationship with you." The Queen of the Demon Realm said calmly, but her tone was a little more unkind. If the appearance of Qing Emperor and Gong Lianyu just now made her a little depressed, then the appearance of Ye Lingxian at this moment made her completely annoyed. Bai Ruoxi has been in love with Musian since Tianqian City. There is nothing to say. And King Di was resurrected with the help of Musian, so it's not surprising that he fell in love over time. But according to the information from the demon world, Ye Lingxian grew up in the Ye family, and her brother should be Ye Yu, and the relationship between Ye Yu and Musian is so bad, how come she keeps calling her brother Mu? So close? The vixens came one after another, which made the Queen of the Demon Realm, who had just awakened the memory of her previous life not long ago, feel an unknown fire in her heart, and the eyes she looked at Ye Lingxian became increasingly cold. It seemed that he was a little too kind at first. "We can't let him stay in Dongzhou anymore. After that, she will be in seclusion for half a year, leaving Musian alone in Dongzhou. After half a year, she may even have little Musian. No matter what he thinks, he must be brought back to the demon world." Ye Lingxian smiled lightly and said, "Brother Mu treats me and Chiener very well. Is it normal for me to like Brother Mu?" She paused and continued, "I'm not interested in the matter between Senior and the sect leader's sister, but I still hope that Senior will make way. I'm going to take Brother Mu back." After saying that, Ye Lingxian wielded his sword and was about to fly to the direction of Jiyuan. Further ahead is the demon world. If Dongzhou monk sets foot in the demon world, I cannot guarantee that I will not suppress you. However, at this moment, the soft and tingling voice of the Queen of the Demon Realm suddenly came from behind, but her eyes were full of coldness. Ye Lingxian paused slightly and glanced sideways at the Queen of the Demon Realm behind her. "Senior should not be such a pedantic person, why do you want to make things difficult for a junior? The so-called Dongzhou monks cannot set foot in the demon world is just an excuse. How many Dongzhou monks go to the demon world to experience every year? It's not like the Queen of the Demon Realm didn't know that the reason why she was speaking so grandly now was because she didn't want to go to the abyss. But why is this?" As if she guessed the doubts in Ye Lingxuan's mind, the Queen of the Demon Realm glanced at the battle between Qing Emperor and Gong Lianyu in the sky, and said calmly, "Brother Mu in your mouth swears allegiance to me, and after that, I will take him back. Demon world. As for Miss Ye, it's better not to disturb him anymore." Oh! Ye Lingxuan's mouth curved slightly as she stared at the Queen of the Demon Realm, still maintaining her elegant appearance. "There are so many talented people in the demon realm, why should seniors bother with Brother Mu? Or, are you attracted to the Tian furnace?" These words seemed to lower her stance, but they were forcing the Queen of the Demon World to give in. Unexpectedly, the queen of the demon realm narrowed her bright red eyes and said quietly, "What if I said that I took him back because I wanted to hum him?" Ya Lingxian was slightly startled, a hint of coldness in her beautiful eyes fleeting. She put her fingertips on her pink lips, innocently raised her head and thought for a moment, then looked at the queen of the demon realm, and suddenly smiled. "Senior, let's help Brother Mu and I. After all, Brother Mu and I truly love each other, and we have already had skin-to-skin contact. His aura is great." Before he finished speaking, the python of the world rushed out from the demon mist and opened its bloody mouth in the direction of Ya Lingxian. However, at this time, in the void, a beautiful woman in white robes stood quietly behind Ya Lingxian. She raised her hand towards the direction where the earthly python was coming, and grasped it out of thin air. The mortal python let out a harsh scream and fell into the demonic mist. Even the queen of the demon realm couldn't help showing a hint of surprise on her face. The doll of the reincarnated queen? However, a mere doll is not enough to become the capital to fight with him. There was a chill in the eyes of the queen of the demon realm, and the pressure from the Hedeo realm was clearly revealed. In the trembling space, a terrifying power erupted in an instant. Musian stepped on the flying sword and unknowingly floated out from the depths of the abyss along the original path. Light gradually appeared in front of his eyes, and he seemed to be vaguely aware of a vast aura. Be careful. Hedeo's aura is far more than one. There is no guarantee that people outside Jiyuan will not be hostile to you. If it is really a battle between the queen of the demon realm and concubine Shangyan, it is best to leave this place as soon as possible. Ye Qingxin's voice came from the bottom of Musian's heart. Although she was able to protect Musian's spiritual consciousness, if possible, she still hoped that Musian could be more careful to avoid physical damage. Musian nodded slightly and said, "Sister Ye, don't worry, I have my own sense of discretion. He is not a stupid person, how could he use this soul-refining body to stop a battle of that level? Besides, both the queen of the demon realm and concubine Shangyan are great masters who have practiced for tens of thousands of years. Their experience is much richer than that of a cultivator who has practiced for less than 20 years. At least they are definitely better than him in judging the pros and cons, and naturally know when to stop. Of course, they may not be better than him in bed. But at the moment, compared with these things, it is more important to bring this coffin back to Tianhe Garden first to see if the drop of blood essence of the immortal realm has any reaction to Sister Mengru. Before, Wei Mengru's immortal devouring lock guided its owner to Jiyuan, which is likely to indicate that Wei Mengru and Jiyuan are involved. If this is the case, the identity of the person in the coffin may be the original witch. If we speculate according to this idea, could the original witch have been to the immortal realm in the past? This speculation made Musian gasp. Seeing the exit of Jiyuan right in front of him, Musian also gathered his thoughts. The queen of the demon realm saved me. Since I plan to go back, I should tell her. Musian said to himself. Thinking of this, Musian drove the flying sword and turned into a stream of light and rushed straight to the dazzling light outside Jiyuan. The sky was gray, but after being in the dark Jiyuan for a long time, the open sky still made Musian squint his eyes comfortably. The raindrops fell on his face with a little coldness, which seemed quite comfortable. He didn't know whether Yeyu was dead or not, but at least this trip to Jiyuan was a big profit. Not only did he get a drop of blood essence to ascend to the fairyland, but even the origin of the coffin on his back was extremely mysterious, and there might be a great opportunity. And he also brushed the favor of Sister Ye and the Queen of the Demon Realm. After returning, I can even enjoy Sister Mengru's lap and disdainful eyes. Musian was imagining the beautiful scene of returning to Tianhewan, but at this moment, a deafening roar exploded in his ears, accompanied by a ray of green light passing by his eyes. Musian was stunned for a moment, and suddenly raised his head to look. Boom! When he saw those familiar figures, his mind was like a bolt from the blue. The coffin on his back fell to the ground with a sound, and his face turned pale. Damn it, am I dazzled? Why are they fighting? Musian calmed down a little, closed his eyes first, and after brewing for a moment, he slowly opened his eyes. Then, when he saw the scene in front of him, he sat down on the coffin. The hand holding the coffin trembled slightly, and he muttered to himself, "What should I do? I haven't had my decayed teeth removed for several years. This afternoon, I removed 4 teeth at once, and 2 of them had root canal treatment. Now I always feel something strange in my mouth. I have to take it easy at night." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 371. Musian sat on the coffin behind him, holding the coffin board with his hand, trembling slightly. 4 of the 4 are in the Hedeo realm, and 1 is a doll made by Ye Lingxian in the past. She has self-awareness. She is also one of the 9 reincarnated queens. When conflicts broke out between Gong Lianyu and King Di in the past, Musian was present and could adjust the atmosphere in time, or Sister Mengru could come to the rescue. But now, he just went to Jiyuan, and the outside has become like this. Musian murmured, "Isn't the person the queen of the demon world is looking for, Sister Sect Master? Why are Yao Meng and Ruoxi here? When did Sister Lingxian come here? What should I do now?" At this moment, everyone in Musian was numb. Logically speaking, shouldn't they be preparing for the Immortal Ascension Conference? They should know when enough is enough. "You should go back to Lianji sect first." Ye Qingxin's voice came from the bottom of Musian's heart, but this time even her tone was a little more unconfident. Musian felt the spiritual energy erupting in mid-air. He couldn't help but raise his head blankly, looking at the graceful figures under the rain curtain. He reluctantly calmed down and said, "No, I can't leave. I'll really feel bad if I leave here. No one can clean up the mess. With your current state, even being here probably doesn't make much sense. If my true body can come down from heaven, I think there are some ways." Ye Qingxin shook her head and said softly. That being said, even if her true body is here, what Ye Qingxin will do at this moment is to take Musian away instead of stopping the commotion here. Musian did not answer any more, and seemed to be slumped on the coffin, but in fact a brainstorm had begun in his mind, and his mind was spinning at high speed. Then after thinking for a while, he gradually gave up thinking. No, in the face of absolutely terrifying strength, no matter how hard you think, it is impossible to stop them with the body of a god. But fortunately, I have prepared a coffin for myself. I don't have to worry about having no place to lie down after this. It was rare that Musian was still in a joking mood at this time. He turned his head and glanced at the closed coffin behind him. After pondering for a long time, he gave up thinking and said to himself, "Can I lie down in it and destroy it before they can decide the winner?" At this time, the raindrops suddenly froze in mid-air. Then, the surrounding environment turned gray in an instant, as if Musian was the only one in color at this moment. Immediately afterwards, a mysterious black mist enveloped silently, and Musian soon felt the beautiful touch of a soft and delicate body coming from behind. The woman in a black dress stretched out her slender, catkin-like hands and hooked his neck from behind. The close body fragrance wafted faintly from her black dress, and the fragrance lingering on the tip of her nose had a warm feeling that Musian was quite familiar with. "It seems like you've run into some minor trouble." The noisy voice just now had completely silenced. When he heard this pleasant voice, Musian turned his head and looked almost subconsciously. "Original Witch," he called out the other party's name softly. Afterwards, Musian reacted immediately and continued, "Are you awake?" The Original Witch smiled and did not answer. Musian soon discovered that her figure seemed a little blurry, and her sexy and tall figure was almost hidden in the black mist, with a vague beauty that was not really visible. "According to what you just said, do you have a way?" Musian asked again. The battle between the four Hedeo realms, even if they still have some reservations, is already extremely terrifying and cannot be stopped by ordinary people. More importantly, if he gets angry, Mr. Mew will be the one who has a headache from now on. The one who has the solution is not me, but you, the original witch said calmly. Her coquettish and mysterious eyes are full of thrilling charm. Even the moment when she gazes into the eyes of the original witch, people feel uncontrollably attracted to her eyes. Musian frowned slightly and thought to himself, if there was anything I could do, I wouldn't have just planned to lie down in the coffin and leave it to pieces. The answer lies in the coffin at this time, she suddenly said softly. Snap. The raindrops fell again, hitting Musian's face. The slightly cool and moist touch made him wake up from his thoughts just now. For a moment, Musian even thought that he was just having a dream. What happened to you just now? Suddenly you seemed to be in a daze. At this time, Yekingzin's voice suddenly came from the bottom of Musian's heart, which also brought him back to reality from the confused state just now. I was in a daze just now. Musian raised his head, but the original witch could no longer be seen in front of him. Musian used his spiritual consciousness to scan his natural furnace, and the original witch was still sleeping in his natural furnace. This is strange. Could it be that I really had a hallucination just now? The original witch does have the power to rewrite time. She should have appeared just now, but then she returned to my body? Musian gradually calmed down and turned to look at the ancient coffin behind him. If the conversation he had with the original witch just now was not an illusion, could this ancient coffin really have some origin? Musian's eyes flashed slightly, and he lightly jumped down from the coffin. Then, he reached out and gently touched the surface of the coffin. He gently pressed on the tightly closed coffin board and slowly pushed it open. There was no one in the coffin, only enough space for one person. Recalling what the original witch had just said, Musian simply made up his mind and lay down directly in it. And almost at that moment, a strong sense of dizziness attacked his brain. Musian felt trance and his eyes gradually turned dark. Is his spiritual consciousness disappearing? Yekingzin noticed the scene almost immediately and was about to pull Musian's spiritual consciousness back. However, at this moment, she suddenly felt a strong spiritual energy pouring into the natural furnace. That spiritual energy does not belong to Jizhu. Yekingzin's action of making a move was stagnant, and soon a look of surprise flashed in her eyes. The spiritual energy of the heaven. When Yekingzin's fiery red and charming figure left Musian's body, she found that she had already appeared in the heaven. She almost subconsciously turned her head to look at the young man beside her, her charming red eyes flickered slightly, and she whispered to herself, this ancient coffin is actually the road to becoming an immortal in heaven. Her judgment was indeed correct. Musian was the key to open the heaven. Apart from him, there was no other person in the world who could open the passage to heaven. But even Yekingzin did not expect that Musian would bring her spiritual consciousness into heaven. The original witch is indeed involved with heaven. Is it possible that the one who left the ancient coffin was the original witch? Musian whispered to himself, his slender figure set off his black robe with elegance and grace, and there seemed to be a faint white glow flowing on his body, like a young god. But his body surface was covered by black mist, and it was completely difficult to see his body. Unlike the last time, this time Musian could clearly feel that he had a lot more control over heaven. He could even roughly feel the size and structure of heaven. But why is the heaven hidden in an ancient coffin? Could it be that the Lord of Heaven in the past hid a heaven that is no less than the size of Dongzhou in a small ancient coffin? It would be great if Yao Meng and the others could be brought into the heaven to discuss things properly. This thought just flashed through his mind, and in this heaven that exuded a strong spiritual aura, a long bronze table quietly appeared in front of him, and then several chairs appeared side by side. This heaven could know his thoughts and actively realize his ideas. The next moment, Musian suddenly vaguely sensed that several familiar auras were entering this place one after another. Sister Mengro saved me again. Musian muttered to himself. If it weren't for the reminder of the original witch, he might not have noticed the magical use of this ancient coffin so quickly. Soon, Musian noticed several spiritual consciousnesses entering the heaven. Faintly, he could even hear their conversation. This feeling is novel. I can see everything in the heavenly court by sitting here. Musian was full of surprise. At this moment, everything in the heavenly court is controlled by him. He is the author of the heavenly court rules. In other words, as long as he is in the heavenly court, his identity will not be discovered by them. Next, just play a good role. I didn't expect that the road to immortality would appear inexplicably in the border area, and it was less than a month since the last time. At this moment, a wisp of spiritual consciousness separated by Yao Meng has appeared in the heavenly court unknowingly. When she fought with Gong Lianyu before, she vaguely noticed a road to immortality that appeared silently in the air. However, this time the road to immortality exuded a friendly invitation. Ya Lingxian, wearing a layered and complicated elegant dress, looked around carelessly, and glanced at the green figure not far ahead. Among the people present, Ya Lingxian was the most wary of the Green Emperor. The reason for this is that this fairy in the eyes of the world has cheated on her more than once. This time, she wanted to take this opportunity to settle all the old and new grudges, but she didn't expect that the road to becoming an immortal would inexplicably appear in the border area. I don't know where Brother Mu went, he was clearly in the abyss before, but I couldn't detect his breath just now. Ya Lingxian said to herself. Your brother Mu might have been scared away by your quarrel. I have said long ago that if he follows me back to the demon world, he will naturally not have any troubles again. The voice of the queen of the demon world is charming and pleasant, and her tone is indifferent. Ya Lingxian looked at him coldly and said, isn't it a bit inappropriate to use mind reading on a junior? Sorry, I accidentally read your mind. I almost forgot that Miss Ye is just a little cultivator in the refining spirit realm. The queen of the demon world smiled charmingly. This sounded like an apology, but the tone sounded like saying, sorry, you are too weak, I accidentally read your mind. No matter how strong you are as the reincarnated queen, the refining spirit realm is the refining spirit realm, and the Hedeo realm is the Hedeo realm. The gap between the two is as insurmountable as the gap between heaven and earth. Although the demon world is much more stable now, if you go into seclusion in the future, no one can guarantee his safety. Yao Meng said calmly, but if he stays in Dongzhou, no matter he is in Lianji sect or Yaokai Holy Land, no one will hurt him at all. If it was so safe to stay in Dongzhou, how did he die in the first place? The queen of the demon realm said calmly, but she mercilessly uncovered Qing Emperor's scars and sprinkled salt on them. At this time, Gong Lianyu looked at the charming queen of the demon realm coldly and said, if a monk from Dongzhou becomes a high-level official in the demon world, or is even kept in the palace by the queen of the demon world, he will probably be shamed by the monks from both Dongzhou and the demon world. Hasn't the empress of the demon world even considered this? A trace of complexity flashed in Yao Meng's beautiful eyes, she pursed her lips, maintaining her usual indifference, and said the same, the palace master is right, the Dongzhou monk rashly went to the demon world, even though you have protected him, have you ever considered what happens if you ignore other people's gossip? Ya Lingxian immediately responded, you only consider the surface and don't really think about Brother Mu. She paused and continued, as for the seniors, you are far superior to Brother Mu in terms of longevity and cultivation. Have you ever thought about how much pressure he would have when he is with you? Only Brother Mu and I are in the same realm and age, and we know how to consider him in every aspect. Brother Mu and I are made for each other. You are just a bunch of vixens who want to eat young grass. You want him to drive a big car every day. Although Ya Lingxuan's words didn't sound so unpleasant on the surface, translating them in a low EQ way roughly conveyed the meaning. It started tearing. I really shouldn't have been curious about those who were watching the show just now, Seeing that there was a faint tendency to tear apart again, Musian's heart sank, and he spoke at the right time. Since you are here, why don't you just sit down calmly, come down and have a cup of tea and talk slowly. As this gentle voice came faintly in the heaven, an ancient bronze table appeared out of thin air in front of several people. A teacup appeared on the table, and heat rose. At the end of the long table, a young man wrapped in black mist appeared in everyone's sight. He deliberately changed his voice, and the spiritual energy in heaven covered his aura, so no one noticed it. Although Musian originally planned to observe and observe again, if he continues to observe now, he may have to choose one of the 4 restricted areas, Sword Palace, Yaokai or Demon Realm. Who are you? Gong Lianyu looked coldly, looked at the figure shrouded in black mist at the end of the long table, and asked. You must have the answer in your mind, right? Musian used the power in heaven to rewrite his voice and spoke in a gentle tone. The master in heaven, Yao Meng, narrowed her beautiful eyes and looked at the man in front of her doubtfully. Gong Lianyu also stared at him. For some reason, although he was a little strange, he felt inexplicably familiar. Why don't you dare to show your true identity to others? Ya Lingxian asked. My appearance is related to your hearts. The more confused you are at the moment, the blurrier my figure will be, Musian said. The new Tiandao Yuan Luo is presented in the way Musian likes. Now he has directly transferred the settings of Yuan Luo without revealing any flaws at all. There is actually a master in the heaven. The queen of the demon realm's beautiful eyes flashed slightly and said, what was your purpose in inviting us to the heaven in the border area? I noticed that everyone was fighting over a little monk, so I had no choice but to mediate. Musian smiled. I know that the young monk is handsome and talented, and he is a rare pride of heaven. However, I still hope that all fellow Taoists will consider Jizhu. Everyone should also know that under the restrictions of the rules of heaven and earth, the power of Hedao can never take action in the true sense. Kyushu is very big, let alone Kyushu. Ordinary monks may not be able to reach the end of Dongzhou alone if they walk for 10 years. But no matter how big Jizhu is, it can't withstand the torment of the 4 great powers of Hedao. This was very pertinent, and several people present knew it well. Why does the Lord of Heaven, who has never appeared in Kyushu before, care so much about Kyushu? However, at this time, Ya Lingxian suddenly asked a question, which made several people's eyes focus on Musian again. Her expression was indifferent, her posture was upright and elegant, her dress highlighted her already sizable breasts, and her beautiful violet eyes stared at the young man under the black mist. In the past, I fell asleep due to some things. This time I was awakened by the noise caused by everyone. I had no choice but to take action. I just hope that everyone can be more sensible, Musian said, half truth and half lie, making it difficult to distinguish the truth from falsehood. The queen of the demon realm inadvertently looked at him a few more times. Although she had doubted the other party's identity at first, but she couldn't read his mind, so he must be an existence similar to hers. Even if this Lord of Heaven is not the real thing, he must be a powerful person in heaven. Since fellow Taoist knows the ins and outs of this matter, who do you think is more suitable for him? Yao Meng suddenly asked casually, with a hint of meaning in his green eyes. This matter should be decided by himself, but I don't think even he would want you to fight over his affairs. Musian said leisurely, with the methods of the queen of the demon realm, there is probably a way to contact him, so why do we have to bring him back to the demon realm? As for everyone in Dongzhou, there is no need to insist on whether he will go to the Yaokai Holy Land, the restricted area, or the Sword Palace. Wouldn't it be better to make a compromise and let him stay in the Lianji sect? Silence. There was a brief silence in the heaven. Musian was sweating profusely, but he remained calm on the surface, secretly examining the expressions of the beauties. Fortunately, there was the cover of the black fog at this moment. If he exposed his identity here, they would have to fight directly in the heavenly palace. At this time, Musian suddenly noticed a slightly abrupt gaze looking at him in doubt. He looked in the direction of that gaze and happened to meet the pair of beautiful green eyes. Yao Meng held her cheeks with her hands, her full chest pressed on the table, and looked at him playfully. Musian's heart skipped a beat and he immediately retracted his gaze. Yao Meng raised the corner of her mouth slightly, retracted her gaze without leaving a trace, and said, "As long as someone gives up taking Mu Lang back to the demon world, I have no objection to other issues." The queen of the demon world narrowed her eyes and glanced at the Green Emperor. Although she wanted to say something more, she recalled what the others had just said, and the queen of the demon realm pinched her brows as if she had given up, and said faintly, "That's all." The previous idea was indeed a little ill-considered. On the one hand, Musian might not want to go to the demon realm. On the other hand, if she went to the demon realm, the demon cultivators below would inevitably have some comments on Musian's affairs. At last, the big mosasaurus in the fish pond was separated for the time being. Seeing the queen of the demon realm silent, Musian felt relieved, and immediately glanced at the others, smiled and chatted with them again. At this time, Yao Meng examined the people in front of her, and suddenly chuckled, "I still have some things to do. If there is nothing else, I will leave first." After she finished speaking, she turned into a green light and disappeared in the heavenly palace. Musian chatted for a few more sentences and answered some questions about the heavenly palace. Then he stopped and smiled. "The path to immortality given by the heavenly court this time is still not the real path to immortality. If you have nothing else to do, go back to Jizhu. The more you talk, the more mistakes you make. One of your habitual movements or even a word may be exposed. If you continue to talk, the risk will be too great." Musian slowly opened his eyes and saw the gloomy sky. Although the weather was not very good, he breathed a sigh of relief. "Finally, I can rest assured for the time being." It must be said that the mosasaur is completely different from the fish. They will really fight, and every move may affect the future situation in Jizhu. The operation is getting more and more difficult. "I have to be more careful in the future," Musian muttered silently, climbed out of the coffin, and stretched his waist. "You sweat a lot. Is it because you were too nervous in the performance just now?" A soft and sweet voice came from the side. She wiped the cold sweat on Musian's forehead carefully with a handkerchief. Musian felt warm in his heart and said subconsciously, "Thank you." He was stunned for a moment and slowly turned his head to look. Then, his eyes froze. Yao Meng. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 372. Why is Yao Meng here? She left the heavenly palace earlier. Could it be that she knew something and came to catch me in advance? At this moment, Musian was in a state of confusion. He looked at the beautiful woman in the green dress in front of him in disbelief. The little soul in his heart seemed to be roaring. Yao Meng sat on the side of the ancient coffin with one leg, and a pair of long white legs swayed under the green gauze skirt. The slightly thin fabric seemed to reveal a little whiteness of her skin, but the dress was covered with a layer of light silver light, and the fairy mist was shrouded on her body, making it difficult to peek at her. "Are you surprised?" She turned her head to look at Musian, but a faint arc appeared at the corner of her mouth. Musian finally woke up from the sudden realization just now, and sat up in shock from the dying illness in the ancient coffin, wondering, "When did you find out?" He believed that he had never exposed any flaws at all. After all, if he had really been exposed, he would have been caught in the heavenly palace not long ago, and he would not have waited until now. "Have you forgotten the cave heaven assessment conducted by the ancestors of the Ye family?" Yao Meng said with a smile, "You were able to open the gate of the heaven at that time, which shows that your origin with the heaven is far beyond others' imagination. You can open the gate of the heaven and absorb the spiritual energy of the heaven for your own use. Even if you pretend to be the master of the heaven, or even if you are the master of the heaven, it is not surprising." It is precisely because of this that she left the heaven in advance just now, just to get ahead of others. Because she guessed that the person in the heaven before was Musian. And now it seems that her guess seems to be correct. Musian. At this moment, he couldn't help but fall into a long silence. He never expected that although his disguise in the heaven was not exposed, Yao Meng actually judged his identity through some previous clues. Besides, who would brag about themselves like that? What talent and good looks! If those who have never suspected that you are the Lord of Heaven, they probably wouldn't find it suspicious, but I'm different. Yao Meng reached out and stroked Musian's face, with a hint of tenderness in her bright and clear green eyes, and continued, I know everything about you, including your personality, behavior, habits, and even. Her fingertips slowly moved down along Musian's face, along the rolling throat to the chest, and then gently moved down until the fingertips paused at a certain time. For a moment, Musian's heartbeat uncontrollably accelerated a few points, staring at the otherworldly beautiful face, and the pair of charming green eyes. Yao Meng raised her eyes, a playful smile in her eyes, retracted her fingertips, and said softly, no matter where it is, I know it clearly. Musian barely stabilized his accelerated heartbeat and said, when you were in my body, you basically didn't fall asleep a few times, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't know him so well, and even his hobbies and personality are so well understood. Yao Meng looked at him with eyes full of smiles and said softly, at that time, my spiritual consciousness was extremely weak. Even if I didn't want to sleep, I had to sleep to keep my spiritual consciousness from dissipating, so that I wouldn't have to keep spying on you in your natural furnace. As for after I reshaped my body, I basically never slept. She paused and said softly, the queen of the demon realm is right. You died for me once in the past, so I don't want to see it again. Musian was silent for a moment, frowned slightly, and said, when you reshaped your body in the Yaoqi ancestral land, you didn't know what happened in the Yaoqi holy land. It's not your fault. And I have the elixir given by Sister Lingxian, so I didn't actually die. Last time, I only had the elixir to protect your spiritual consciousness. What about next time? Yao Meng slowly grabbed Musian's hand and led his hand to her thigh. The raindrops in the sky fell on her beautiful legs, and the crystal water droplets looked particularly sacred against the white and smooth jade legs. The slightly cool and soft touch was like jade, and it also made Musian's heart ripple slightly. Yao Meng seemed not to notice, and caressed Musian's face nonchalantly, staring at his beautiful green eyes with moist charm. You are my Taoist partner, and this body is also created by you, so everything I have is yours. You are also a man I recognize, so I will always protect you from behind in the future and protect you for the rest of your life. If someone else said this, it might not be convincing, but the person who spoke was Kingdi. In this world, except for the powerful people who are in harmony with the Tao, any cultivator must bow in front of her. When she said this, it was naturally very convincing. Musian was silent for a while, and gently wiped the water droplets on her beautiful legs with his palm. He raised his handsome face and smiled brightly, one life is only 5,000 years, can't there be a few more lives? The so-called one life is one life, you should know what I mean. Could it be, you are using this self-deprecating way to cover up your inner shyness? Yao Meng deliberately teased, slightly approaching, curiously observing Musian's expression. Yingying's charming clear and beautiful eyes, small and attractive red lips, and the delicate face under the loose long hair embellished with light makeup, seemed to add a bit of charm to the purity. Even Musian, who has been in the flower garden for many years, can't stand it and can't help staring at her beautiful face. I don't know if it's because of the rain or something, but her eyes seem a little moist, and her red lips are small and elastic. The close contact makes her slight breathing clearly felt. What's wrong? Yao Menmei's eyes were filled with a teasing smile. Musian suddenly woke up from his previous thoughts. Just when he was about to say something, he heard Yao Meng casually say, "There is something wrong with the suppression thing under the Tiandan phoenix tree. After this, I may still need to go back." She raised her hand to tidy up Musian's collar carefully, raised her head to look at him, and said softly, "It would be great if someone could go back with me at this time. It's very lonely to be alone." This is no longer a hint, it's almost explicit. "If I accompany you back to Yaokai for a week and a half, Ruoxi and the others will have to lock me in a small dark room when we return to Lianji section." Musian's silence is golden. At this time, Yao Meng supported both sides of the ancient coffin with both hands. Her delicate and flawless face was almost face to face with Musian's. She whispered again, "Come with me back to Yaokai, okay?" Musian lowered his eyes reservedly and declined politely, "Sister Fairy should know my relationship with Sister Mengru. She has a special constitution and cannot leave me for too long, otherwise the body of bad luck may attack. In fact, Wei Mengru's current bad luck body should not be affected. After all, she has received the luck from the old heaven, which also made up for part of her bad luck. You don't have to worry too much about Miss Wei. After that, I will ask her to go to Yaokai Holy Land with me, so you can feel at ease, right?" Yao Meng said. Musian couldn't help but fell into deep thought. After a while, he raised his head and stared at her. "What happened to the Tiandan phoenix tree that requires you to take action personally, or even stay in the Yaokai Holy Land?" Yao Meng said lightly, "After you died, the Queen Mother of Yaokai sealed something there." She stretched out her hand to gently tidy up the hair in front of Musian's forehead, and said very considerately and understandingly, "I know you may not be used to being served by maids other than Miss Mengru. When the time comes, let her stay with you. It's okay with you. Or?" Yao Meng paused deliberately, noticing Musian's attracted gaze. Her red lips curved slightly, and she came close to Musian's ear, and said in a soft and charming voice, "I can also be your maid, what do you think? Master Ren?" Boom. The heartbeat accelerated in an instant to the point where it seemed like it was about to jump out at any moment. Musian can guarantee that no one can withstand such an offensive from a big sister. She supports both sides of the ancient coffin with her hands, leans slightly in your ear, uses a sultry voice to tease your nerves, and even just lowers her head slightly. You can see the Qiliang style under her clothes. Such a ravine can only be described as unfathomable. Musian stared closely at this beautiful and charming face. Her small red lips were lightly parted, her beautiful eyes were full of emotion, but her body exuded a faint brilliance, giving people a sense of holiness that could not be easily approached. It is this charm of purity and desire that is hard to take away. At this time, Yao Meng suddenly gently hooked Musian's neck, then lowered his head slightly, and pressed his red lips on his lips. The sweet touch of lips and teeth, accompanied by the quiet body fragrance emanating from Yao Meng, made Musian's eyes become much hotter. However, before he could experience it more, Yao Meng gently pushed him away. "Take your time when you get back." Yao Meng gently wiped her red lips with her fingertips, and her smile was as holy and soft as ever. "Or are you planning to sleep with me here? That's why I say that big sister is really an irresistible creature." Musian took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Slightly suppressing the throbbing in his heart, he said, "How long will we go to Yaokai Holy Land?" It seems that the books written by Shang Yanfei are still very effective. Yao Meng pursed her moist red lips, as if she wanted to suppress the curve she wanted to raise. In the end, she held it back, but with a faint smile in her eyes, she said softly, 7 days at most. At this time, Musian suddenly hugged her slender waist. Under Yao Meng's slowly widening beautiful eyes, he lowered his head and kissed her red lips, as if to retaliate against this woman for teasing her just now. Normally, no matter how lightly she beats her shoulders, she won't let go. At that moment, the spiritual energy in the Tiansheng furnace quietly entered her body, slowly making up for the spiritual energy she had lost previously. After a while, their lips parted. Yao Meng wiped his red lips carelessly, glanced at the mysterious ancient coffin, and said, "I will put this ancient coffin into my cave for you first." At the end of the sentence, the red lips finally couldn't help but evoke a faint arc. Next, they were going to Yaokai Holy Land for a while. In the past 2 days, she had ordered Yaokai Holy Land to prepare Nirvana silk, waiting to give Muzian a little surprise. Strange, this ancient coffin cannot be absorbed by my cave. Yao Meng raised his fingertips and found that the ancient coffin was not moving at all. She looked at the ancient coffin doubtfully for a few times, activated more vast spiritual energy, and then forcibly moved it a little with brute force. "I'd better carry it. It doesn't take much energy anyway." When Muzian saw this, he immediately spoke. Yao Meng said It seemed that only Muzian could easily carry this ancient coffin, and it was difficult for anyone else to move it. However, these things are not important. Yao Meng smiled chastely, staring at Muzian quietly, thinking about the various uses of Nirvana silk in the future. However, while Yao Meng was weaving a beautiful dream of going to Yaokai, in Muzian's natural furnace, a woman in a black and red dress was sitting in the void, swinging her embroidered feet nonchalantly. She lowered her eyes slightly, and inadvertently moved the corners of her mouth, raising an interesting arc. Outside the border, Gong Lianyu, who had just arrived about an incense stick ago, stood expressionlessly in the misty rain, looking at the empty border. Clearly not long ago, she could still sense Muzian's breath coming out of the abyss, but after she only went to the heaven, Muzian's breath had completely disappeared in the border. It was not a simple disappearance, but even the breath was wiped out. Malang doesn't seem like the kind of person who would leave without saying hello. Could he have encountered some danger? Bairuoxi's voice came from the bottom of her heart, and her soft eyes were filled with worry. Gong Lianyu snorted and said coldly, "I'm afraid that a vixen has planned the follow-up plan in advance and may have taken him away in advance." She had loose hair and wore a palace skirt with a white base and black patterns embroidered on it, which showed off her graceful and tight sexy figure. The layered and complicated dress fluttered in the cold wind, revealing a pair of snow-white and slender legs. A black leg ring was tied on the left leg, leaving a faint snow-white mark. The flawless white skin was snow-white and crystal clear under the rain, revealing a beautiful translucent texture. And she was wearing a pair of exquisite deerskin boots, which added a bit of awe-inspiring beauty. "You mean, Mulang was taken away by someone?" Bairuoxi's eyes flickered, and he said softly, "The Queen of the Demon Realm and Sister Lingxian left with us. The Queen of the Demon Realm just returned to the Demon Realm not long ago, and Sister Lingxian is still behind. If there are people who left the Heavenly Court early, then only Kingdi," Bairuoxi said the answer softly. Gong Lianyu raised her eyebrows and said coldly, "I knew that there must be something wrong with Kingdi's early departure, but I didn't expect her to come up with this idea. I want to see what she wants to do by secretly taking Mulang." Bairuoxi's peach blossom eyes were soft and moist, and she said worriedly, "Is it okay? Before I entered the Return to Void Realm, I couldn't support 2 spiritual consciousnesses. Don't force yourself too much. It doesn't matter, it's just a trip to Yaokai." Gong Lianyu raised her snow-white chin arrogantly and sneered, "Since she didn't abide by the rules first, don't blame us for breaking the rules." So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 373. There was no sound in the abyss. After Muzian, the Queen of the Demon Realm and others left, the monks in this land of chaos also escaped one after another. After all, not long ago, 4 Hedeo realms gathered in the border area, and there were faint signs of taking action. No monk dared to stay longer in the border area. Although the Queen of the Demon Realm originally planned to force concubine Shangyan out, even she did not expect that concubine Shangyan had never shown her face from beginning to end, but instead attracted several vixens. "Your Majesty, it seems that they have all left now. Do you want to continue to force Sect Master Shang to come out to see you? The First Lady, wearing a light blue skirt, stood quietly beside her and asked in a respectful tone. There's no rush. Judging from her attitude today, I know it's unlikely that she will show up. If we continue to force her, we might attract more vixens. The Queen of the Demon Realm lowered her eyes, her gorgeous long dress fluttering in the cold wind, and looked at the tiny wound on her fingertips. Are you okay? This seems to be a wound left by Tiandao not long ago. The first seat raised his head and stared at the Queen of the Demon Realm, with worry in his clear and beautiful eyes. The wound has healed long ago. This is the erosion of the way of heaven. It can be eliminated by meditating and practicing after returning. It is not a serious problem, the Queen of the Demon Realm said calmly. The chosen son is blessed by heaven, and it is difficult for him to die as long as his luck is not completely lost. However, she did not expect that when the Hedao realm took action, the heavenly Dao would take the initiative to protect the chosen son. Was this also within the rules? However, although the Hedao realm is within the rules, if it is the feathering realm, it breaks the rules of heaven and earth. The bright red beautiful eyes of the Queen of the Demon Realm looked down at the land of Eastern Continent with a cold and arrogant look on all living beings. At that point, whatever you want to do is up to you. At this moment, Ye Lingxian stood on the top of the mountain with an expressionless face, looking down at the abyss below. There is indeed something wrong with Emperor Cheng. She left Heavenly Court early just to take him to Yaokai Holy Land. Seeing that the border area was vast and a few monks could not be seen, and she did not notice the fluctuations of Musian's spiritual energy, she couldn't help but whisper to herself. King Di just left here not long ago, he shouldn't have gone far yet. Master, do you want to chase after him and take a look? The reincarnated queen silently stared at the girl in purple skirt beside her and asked softly. No need. Although Emperor Qing is unreasonable, he will not force Brother Mu to do something he doesn't like. Since Brother Mu will agree to follow her to Yaokai, he must have his own ideas. Ye Lingxian shook his head. Her makeup was pure, her hair was blowing in the cold wind, she was wearing a light purple dress, her skin was white and delicate, and a pair of slender white legs vaguely appeared under the skirt. Her small face was extremely indifferent. The reincarnated queen glanced at her, hesitated for a moment, and said, but even if the master returns to the Lianji sect now, I'm afraid it will be too late to participate in the next competition. And if Mr. Mu goes to the Yaokai Holy Land and lingers there? The indifferent expression on Ye Lingxuan's face froze slightly. After a while, she suddenly came back to her senses, subconsciously looked at the Sanhui royal sister in white robe next to her, and said, this is the first time I have seen you say so many words. I already have self-awareness, but in most cases I will follow the master's orders. This time I just put forward some appropriate reference suggestions, the reincarnated queen said. When Ye Lingxian heard this, he couldn't help but look at her a few more times, and suddenly he was stunned. So when Brother Mu and I were getting intimate before, you also knew what we were doing. She had been intimate with Musian in the room several times in the past, and once or twice the reincarnated queen was hiding in the shadows. After seeing the reincarnated queen nodding silently, Ye Lingxuan's eyes slowly opened wide, and two lovely blushes appeared on her face, and she said, since you have self-awareness, why didn't you go out then? The reincarnated queen tilted her head slightly and said, you didn't let me out either. Ye Lingxian. In short, let's go back to the sect first. The girl who had always been quiet and elegant was already a little nervous at this moment, with a faint blush still remaining on her face. She continued, if Brother Mu has not returned to the sect in 5 days, I will personally go to the Yaokai Holy Land to pick him up. Yaokai Holy Land. Nearly 2 days had passed when they arrived at the Yaokai Holy Land. Although Yao Meng could quickly return to the Yaokai Holy Land with his methods, there was nothing he could do if he brought another Musian with him. After all, he was still carrying the ancient coffin obtained in the Jiyuan. Judging from the current situation, the only one who could move the ancient coffin was Musian. Stepping into Yaokai, the courtyard inside is particularly quiet, and there is a lake not far away. On the edge of the lake, a pavilion is built next to the water. The ancient Tiandan phoenix tree seems to support the entire sky. In the fairy mist, you can vaguely see a woman sitting in front of the attic playing the zither and playing the piano. Fairy sounds float from the attic. Coming out is mind-blowing. I remember when I first met you, you were playing the piano in front of the attic like this, right? Musian raised his head and stared at the Yaokai woman shrouded in the fairy mist, and couldn't help but speak with a somewhat emotional tone. Yao Meng was floating in the mid-space, with his feet in the air, his eyes casually scanning the woman not far away, and said with a smile, "My spiritual energy was almost exhausted at the beginning, and it was just a last resort to attract you and Qian'er." At this time, a disciple of Yao Qi came over from a distance, bowed his head and said respectfully, "Saintess, the Queen Mother invites you in Suanyu Palace." Yao Meng's current status seems very strange. Although she is the founder of Yao Qi Holy Land, she is also the first generation of Saintess of Yao Qi Holy Land. The current ruler is still given to Queen Mother Yao Qi, and the disciples below can only call her Saintess. Yao Meng smiled and nodded, looking at Musian and said, "You go to my bedroom to rest for a while, I will find you later. I have prepared some surprises for you that will make your heart beat." "Why does this sound like I am going to sleep with you?" Musian couldn't help but complain in his heart, and nodded with a smile, "I know, you go to Suanyu Palace first." This time Yao Meng returned to Yao Qi not just for vacation, naturally she also had things to do. The female disciple bowed politely in the direction of Musian, and her beautiful eyes couldn't help but look at him curiously for a few more times, and then she took Yao Meng to Suanyu Hall. After all, they were the Taoist companions of the Green Emperor, and no matter who they were, they would be curious, not to mention that they were disciples of the Yaokai Holy Land. After watching the two leave, Musian looked up at the ancient tree and suddenly asked, "Sister Ye, do you feel that there is anything unusual about this Tiandan phoenix tree?" "There is nothing unusual about the Tiandan phoenix tree, but there seems to be something sealed inside," Ye Qingxin said. Did Yao Meng return to the Yaokai Holy Land because of the seal in the Tiandan phoenix tree? Musian was a little more curious. What was sealed under this ancient tree that required a person in the Hedao realm to return to the Yaokai Holy Land in person? At this time, the sound of the guhan not far away suddenly stopped with the last sound of the hao. A beautiful woman in the attic came towards Musian lightly, with a graceful body and beautiful face. But Musian just took a glance and secretly commented, "She is beautiful, but too young." "Musian? Why are you here too?" When Musian felt regretful, the woman in the distance had already walked over from a distance. The white dress added a little princess temperament to her. A pair of bright peach blossom eyes looked at Musian doubtfully and continued, "Senior Kingdi really values you enough. He even asked you to accompany him when he returned to Yaokai. I thought it was someone whose guhan skills were so beautiful, it turned out to be Fairy Yao Xian." Musian took a look at the woman in front of him and recognized her at a glance. It was Yao Xian who had come to Tianhewan to find him once before. After several months, her figure is much taller than before, with fairy-like skin and jade-like body, but the parts that should be developed have not developed much, so she still looks a little childish. Yao Xian's eyebrows were relaxed, and she was obviously quite pleased with Musian's good words. She snorted, "I wanted to play a song for Senior Kingdi to appreciate, but I didn't expect you to be here too." "Yao Meng has already gone in," Musian smiled. Yao Xian is obviously about the same age as Ye Qian, and she grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth, so she has some arrogance of a disciple from an ancient family. It's just that because of the girl's appearance, such arrogance looks a little cute. "Then why are you still here?" Yao Xian asked. Muzian hesitated for a moment and smiled. I just felt that there seemed to be some noise under the Tiandan phoenix tree, so I was a little curious. Does Fairy Yao Xian know anything? Yao Xian nodded gently at first, then quickly shook her head and glanced at Muzian. Why should I tell you? Fairy Yao Xian seems to be quite hostile to me. I don't seem to have done anything to offend you, right? Muzian said helplessly. Yao Xian, who was obviously not very friendly, glanced at Muzian and said lightly, Mr. Mu is joking. You are the Taoist partner of the Saint Lady. How dare I have any hostility towards you? If there is nothing else, I will leave first. Yao Xian nodded politely and turned around to walk into the depths of Yaokai. At this time, Muzian suddenly turned back and shouted at the right time, Yao Meng just went to Xuanyu Hall. Yao Xian paused slightly, and after a moment, she glanced at him awkwardly and said, the seal under the Tiandan phoenix tree is related to the last incident in Yaokai. After that, she lifted her skirt and walked briskly towards Xuanyu Hall. Yao Meng is really respected and loved by Yaokai disciples. Muzian looked at the scene and couldn't help but chuckle secretly. He naturally knew where Yao Xian's hostility towards him came from. A Yaokai disciple who knew Yao Meng was going back to Yaokai Holy Land and played the piano in the attic. What exactly did he want to do? It was not difficult to guess. The reputation of the Qing Emperor is extremely famous even in Zhuzhou. How many female cultivators in the world want to become a fairy like her who is not stained by the mundane world, not to mention the Yaokai disciples who have been exposed to the affairs of the Qing Emperor in Yaokai Holy Land in the past. Ye Qingxin sat in the void, a fiery red figure, swinging her feet. She continued, originally, everyone worshipped Qingdi as a fairy who was difficult to approach, but not long ago, she revealed that she already had a Taoist partner. No wonder the female disciple was a little hostile to you just now. It doesn't matter, Muzian smiled lightly. Anyway, there are so many people who are hostile to him, and it doesn't matter if there is one more. Besides, Yao Xian's hostility is not real hostility, but more like a girl's tsundere feeling. But what Yao Xian just said is a bit concerning. The incident in Yaokai Holy Land should be referring to the time when I was killed. Muzian looked up at this ancient tree. Every branch and leaf on it seemed to be shining with crystal light, and the heavenly pill phoenix fruit that had produced before had been picked and sealed by the Yaokai Holy Land. Rumor has it that if you use the branches and leaves of the Tiandan Huang tree to make tea, you can also extend your life and replenish your spiritual energy. Let's go back to her dormitory first. You've consumed a lot of spiritual energy during the 2 days of traveling, and it's inconvenient to carry an ancient coffin all the time, Ye Qingxin suggested in a warm voice. Muzian hummed. Not only did he consume a lot of spiritual energy, but more importantly, too many things happened during this trip to Jiyuan, and there were still many doubts that he needed to calm down and think about. Why is the ancient coffin a passage connecting heaven, and the identity of the person in the coffin? Of course, in addition to this, Muzian also had some small expectations for what surprises Yao Meng had prepared for him when he took him back to the Yaokai Holy Land. Yao Meng has become more and more enthusiastic since watching Yu Fuyudao, and he understands more and more. I'm really looking forward to her surprise. Muzian flew along the edge of the lake with his sword, and soon he entered deeper into the Yaokai Holy Land. This place is located in the back mountain of the Yaokai Holy Land, shrouded in formations and filled with fairy mist. Not far away is a pool, with divine light gushing out from the pool, and beside the pool is a classical and exquisite pavilion. At the same time, Ye Qingxin's graceful body also appeared next to Muzian. The red gold flame was burning, and there seemed to be black flames in it, making it look extremely mysterious and sacred. The spiritual energy here is really rich. This pool seems to contain divinity. If you bathe here for a long time, it will be much faster than practicing in the outside world, Ye Qingxin said in surprise. It looks like it should be the sacred pool built by Yao Meng in the Yaokai Holy Land after he reshaped his body, Muzian said to himself. He had never seen this sacred pond when he came last time, and he knew that it should have been built later. It can only be said that Hideo's powerful methods reached the sky, but in the past, his attention was attracted by Yao Meng's body, ignoring that she was in the Hideo realm. However, this divine pond is not a heart-pounding surprise. After all, the excitement that Musian wanted must be related to SESE. I wonder what surprise Yao Meng has prepared for me. The answer should be in this attic, right? With a little expectation in his heart, Musian came to the attic with Yu Jian and pushed the door open. At that moment, the things in the attic came into view. Fishnet stockings, black silk suspenders, white silk, high heels, maid uniforms, candles, unknown little balls for gagging, restraint vines. Musian's eyelids twitched wildly and he subconsciously took half a step back. What kind of surprise is this? It's obviously a shock, right? It would be okay if there weren't the following things, but with the addition of the following things, it wouldn't be much of a surprise. Is she planning to give me a 7-day tour of the dark room? Ye Qingxin walked from behind Musian and saw the decoration in the house at a glance. In addition to these stockings, there were also various magical medicines, thousands of years of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, spiritual liquids, and even a Xiaoguang plant. Thousands of emperor-grade medicinal materials. If any of the heavenly materials and earthly treasures here were placed in the outside world, they would be snapped up by people. If placed in the auction house, they would definitely be difficult to obtain at high prices, because any of these magical medicines can instantly restore the spiritual energy of the monks in the realm of refining gods. Full. If it is used for practice, the effect will be even better. The things are quite complete. Ye Qingxin put her hand on Musian's shoulder and looked at the layout of the room. There was a hint of surprise in her cold voice, but the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up in a faint arc. Musian was silent for a long time. I suddenly regretted coming back with her. Ye Qingxin walked into the attic openly and raised her hand to grab the fishnet stockings not far away. Musian was about to speak to stop him, but the next moment, he was speechless. Ye Qingxin has a waterfall of long hair, with dark golden flames dancing in the hair. She wears a black and red dress that highlights her graceful and tight sexy figure. Under the skirt, she has a pair of beautiful white legs under fishnet stockings. The contrast reveals the dazzling white texture like ice crystals. She bent down and hooked the embroidered shoes on her feet. When she noticed Musian's gaze, she raised a slight arc, gently took off the pair of small embroidered shoes, and turned her bare snow-white feet in front of Musian. In a circle, although there was a faint blush on her pretty face, her beautiful eyes were staring straight at Musian. Does it look good? Very beautiful. Musian couldn't help but sigh sincerely. Ye Qingxin is very suitable for this kind of dress. If she was originally a cold type, then the charming dress at this moment makes her a little more light and charming in the coldness, like an elf in the fire, both cool and cool. Charming. As soon as she finished speaking, Ye Qingxin suddenly took half a step forward, turned into a fiery red afterimage, and came to Musian, grabbed his collar, and hooked her snow lotus jade arms around Musian's neck, kissing her. Covered his lips. Musian subconsciously wanted to wrap his arms around Ye Qingxin's waist, but suddenly remembered something and immediately sent a message, "Sister Ye, this place is not suitable. You are not the only one who has suffered a serious loss of spiritual energy in the past few days." Ye Qingxin's half-closed beautiful eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. She raised her eyes and stared into Musian's eyes. Her charming and beautiful face was adorned with light makeup, but it looked charming and seductive. Seeing that Musian stopped talking, she slowly let go of Musian and closed the attic door behind him. She tiptoed slightly to his ear and whispered in an alluring sweet voice. "Don't worry, Qingdi, won't come back so soon. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 374. There are many halls in Yaokai Holy Land, and there is an island not far from the inside. The hall on the island is Swanyu Hall. In the past, Yaokai Queen Mother meditated and cultivated here. In most cases, the internal and external affairs of Yaokai were handled by several elders of Yaokai Holy Land. Those who could enter and leave Swanyu Hall were also powerful figures in Yaokai lineage. Since the last Yaokai incident, King Di reshaped his immortal body, and Yaokai Holy Land has been visited by forces from Dongzhou almost every few days. It was good that no one knew when King Di returned to Yaokai alone a few days ago, but 2 days ago, a cultivator from Dongzhou saw King Di and a cultivator flying to Yaokai Holy Land on a sword. They chatted happily all the way and were very comfortable now. After the news leaked out, there were a lot more people visiting Yaokai Holy Land in the past 2 days. The hall was warm like spring. Yaokai Queen Mother, dressed in luxurious clothes, sat at the table, and a sumptuous meal was already served under the stage. When Senior King Di reshaped his body in the past, he wanted to visit Yaokai in person, but the journey was too long. When he arrived at Yaokai, he encountered the accident. We couldn't disturb him. It was a pity. Today, we can see the appearance of King Di. It's not a waste of our trip. Many cultivators from all over Dongzhou in the hall congratulated and agreed. No matter what, with King Di, Yaokai Holy Land will only become more powerful in the future. 2 days ago, I heard that the Queen of the Demon World came to the border area and seemed to have some plans for Dongzhou. Fortunately, King Di arrived in time, otherwise I don't know what the situation would become. An old man couldn't help but sighed with emotion. Yao Meng smiled and said calmly, "She doesn't want Dongzhou." When these words came out, many cultivators were attracted. They all held their breath and wanted to hear the secrets from King Di. However, Yao Meng did not continue to speak. The elders of Yaoqi will deal with these trivial matters. She came here not to deal with these visitors. Compared with this kind of thing, she has more important things to deal with. Yao Meng looked up at the Queen Mother of Yaoqi. The Queen Mother of Yaoqi immediately understood, smiled, and nodded, and found an excuse to get up and leave the hall. The long rainbow spread out with the wind, and soon, the two came to the palace where the Green Emperor used to meditate and practice. Soon, in the hall. After the rules of heaven and earth were rewritten, the movement under the Tiandan Phoenix tree has been getting bigger and bigger recently. The evil god seems to have touched the threshold of enlightenment. If left alone, it may be a big hidden danger in the future. The Queen Mother of Yaoqi said respectfully, "Senior King Di, since she is determined not to tell the secret of the black fog of the evil god of the southern wilderness, maybe it is better to wipe it out earlier." The previous attack on the Yaoqi Holy Land was behind the shadows of the southern wilderness and the western regions, and the actions of the southern wilderness were deeper and more hidden. At that time, all the southern wilderness cultivators who entered the Yaoqi Holy Land died. Only one evil god who entered the Yaoqi Holy Land was wiped out of his body by Yao Meng, and his spiritual consciousness was suppressed under the Tiandan Phoenix tree. Now that the rules of heaven and earth have changed, the more concentrated spiritual energy has revived, and even the evil god seems to have glimpsed the threshold of the enlightenment realm, which caused the Tiandan Phoenix tree to vibrate. The Queen Mother of Yaoqi felt that if she left the evil god alone, she would have some trouble in the future when she broke through the enlightenment. Yao Meng smiled and said calmly, "Even if she is in the enlightenment realm, she will not be a big threat. Killing her directly will benefit her for what she did to Mulang that day." After a pause, she continued, "What's more, she can't die before she makes the purpose of the southern wilderness clear." When she forcibly read the spiritual consciousness of the evil god, she got unexpected information. The purpose of the southern wilderness is not only to stop the Green Emperor from merging with the Dao and sending people to Dongzhou, but also has other intentions. After this, I will continue to apply another layer of seal. Before she lets go, let her repent under the Tiandan phoenix tree, Yao Meng said calmly. The queen mother of Yaokai nodded slightly and said no more. In the eyes of the world, this fairy is pure and elegant, and looks kind and gentle, but after all, how can she be a cute little white rabbit who can stand out in a golden age and become the only Hedeo realm in that life? If you have to say, Lin Ling is one of them. However, there are too few examples of Hedeo realm who are as innocent as Lin Ling. I think there is only one Lin Ling in this world. The two chatted about Yaokai again, and then the queen mother of Yaokai suddenly smiled and said gently, "It seems that the saint lady should have important things to do, so I won't waste your time anymore." Yao Meng had a beautiful smile on her delicate face like ice and snow, and said lightly, "If you say it's an important thing, it's not. I'm not in a hurry." The queen mother of Yaokai smiled but said nothing, thinking that you said you were not in a hurry, but it looked like she was almost anxious to death. If it weren't for the image of a fairy, she felt that the Green Emperor might have left directly. As for the reason, a few days ago, when the Green Emperor returned to the Holy Land of Yaokai, he asked someone for a lot of Nirvana silk, and asked the people of the Holy Land of Yaokai to make some dresses and silk stockings that were popular in Yuzhou. In addition, there are even some strange props. As for why these things were prepared, I think it is also related to Muzian. After this, I will stay in Yaokai for a few more days. If there is anything else, you can ask someone to find me at the Broken Star Pavilion, Yao Meng said in a calm tone. The queen mother of Yao Qi was slightly startled. It takes so long to seal the heavenly Dan Phoenix tree. Sealing naturally doesn't take long, but after being busy for so long these days, it's time to take a vacation and relax. Yao Meng crossed his arms to hold up his plump and straight breasts. 3,000 black hairs were draped to his waist. He raised his eyes and stared at the mature and beautiful woman. A faint smile seemed to flash through his beautiful eyes. "Maybe then I will be able to see you again. There's a wedding to be held in Yaokai. But before that, he has to bring his maid back to Yaokai. The constitution of the body of doom is too special. If Wei Mengru is allowed to stay alone in Lianji sect, if something goes wrong later, she will feel sorry for Muzian." The hut between the lofts was brightly lit, and the entire hut was lit up by candlelight. When their lips parted, Ye Qingxin turned around and took sexy and enchanting steps, leaning gracefully on the chair beside her, looking at the creature that had just emerged from the void behind Muzian not long ago. "The void nightmare, was it really you who made it attack you before and directed a play?" Ye Qingxin held her fragrant cheek in her hand and looked at the void nightmare next to Muzian. "It has only one eye and looks extremely weird. It looked strange, but I couldn't help but look at it a few more times." Muzian raised his hand to seal the secret, and activated the 8 Desolations dream picture. The moment the picture scroll unfolded, the nightmare walking in the void suddenly raised its head and looked at the picture scroll in mid-air. It glanced at Muzian, and after getting his permission, it immediately turned into a stream of light and flashed into the 8 Desolations dream picture. This creature was originally summoned by Xiao Hua, but it was intimidated by the spirit dragon and attracted by my technique. If it weren't for these coincidences, Sister Ye might not be able to see me anymore. Muzian shook his head. Sighed. Ye Qingxin stood up and walked over to sit next to him. Her black and red dress outlined her sexy and convex figure. The combination of black fishnet stockings and snow-white legs created a huge visual impact. The sharp color contrast also made Muzian smile. He looked down involuntarily. "I don't believe you, little naughty boy, are unprepared." The next moment, a cold and melodious voice came, and there was a hint of teasing in the eyes that glanced at Muzian. Ye Qingxin is naturally not a stupid person. She can also see some of Muzian's little moves. If Xiao Hua's sneak attack on Muzian was unprepared, how could it be such a coincidence that the spirit dragon happened to be beside him to protect him at that time? If this junior hadn't been careful, I might not even have been able to leave Tianqian City. Muzian put his hand on Ye Kingzin's thigh, stared at her, and said softly, "If we can't even get out of Tianqian City, there will be no chance of meeting Sister Ye." Ye Kingzin raised her eyes and said lazily, "You are really good at making girls happy. I'm afraid you coaxed Ye Yu's fiancé away like this, right?" Muzian said helplessly, "Ruoxi didn't like Ye Yu at first and always wanted to break off the engagement, but she never spoke out due to the pressure from her elders." He hesitated for a moment, stared at Ye Kingzin's flawless profile, and said softly, "Sister Ye, are you blaming me for murdering Ye Yu?" A trace of tenderness flashed across Ye Kingzin's beautiful pale red eyes like glass. She stretched out her hand and gently placed it on the back of Muzian's hand, saying, "I don't blame you for this. Of course I know it, so you don't have to worry about it." After she finished speaking, her eyes were complicated and she said, "What Ye Yu did is indeed very hurtful and does not deserve sympathy. Now let alone his life or death, even if he is not dead, I am afraid it will not be much better, but I am here under such circumstances, he is with his former enemy. No matter what, when Ye Yu and Muzian were at odds before, she also made a deal with Muzian about heaven for the Ye family. And now, the relationship with Muzian is even more ambiguous." Thinking about it this way, Ye Kingzin couldn't help but feel a little guilty. At the beginning, Sister Ye was only thinking about the entire Ye family. Others didn't understand, but I understood. Muzian put his arms around her thin shoulders, tilted his head slightly, and said softly, "Now we are a big step closer to my sister's original goal, aren't we? The ancient coffin connected to the heaven in the abyss, the author of the heaven's rules, and the ascension of the whole family that Ye Kingzin pursues are now almost complete. It is indeed a big step closer to Ye Kingzin's goal." Hearing this, Ye Kingzin suddenly felt dazed. Muzian reached out to hold her soft little hand and whispered, "Forget about Ye Yu. After all, who could have imagined that the matter between you and me would become like this?" Ye Kingzin did not have the intention of coveting his body at the beginning, but after getting along with him and various experiences later, the beautiful ancestor of the Ye family had a different impression of Muzian. Seeing that the atmosphere was silent and ambiguous, Muzian now had some time to admire the fire fairy next to him and her plump and slender legs. In a sense, Ye Kingzin's figure is quite similar to Yao Meng's, but one of them has a more fairy-like temperament, while Ye Kingzin is more charming. But the two of them have one thing in common: their skin is delicate and white, and their hand feel is excellent, smooth, and delicate. If they were allowed to stand here and let Muzian recognize people by looking at their legs, Muzian felt that he could tell them apart at a glance, because Ye Kingzin's beautiful legs were more white and rosy, while Yao Meng's were more white and crystal clear, as soft as moonlight. But Sister Ye has really good taste, and the fishnet stockings really suit her, Muzian admired inwardly. Seeing that the atmosphere in the room was silent, Muzian was about to speak to break the silence, but he suddenly saw her leaning forward slightly and kissing his lips gently with her elastic red lips. "This is a thank you to you, little one." A coquettish and sweet smile bloomed on Ye Kingzin's face. "I've figured it out." After Muzian's persuasion just now, she has become more open-minded. No wonder Qing Emperor likes Muzian. For such powerful Hedao masters like them, boring practice has no meaning, and Muzian's appearance is like lubricant, except for the infinite possibilities derived from the natural furnace cauldron. In addition, he can also bring a lot of nourishment to her boring practice since she reached the Hedao realm. Just flirting with King Di like this without telling him is enough to make people feel happy physically and mentally, not to mention that the practice will not be boring. But after thinking about it, I just... Ye Kingzin suddenly paused deliberately, kissed Muzian's ear gently, and murmured in a soft and numb voice, "If Emperor Qing knew that you and I were flirting in her house, what kind of reaction would he have? I think she should be able to, with you." Muzian suddenly hugged her waist tightly, and then kissed the seductive red lips that had been teasing him since the beginning, giving her some small punishment. Then he hugged her waist and squeezed gently. Yekingzin's charming red eyes were half closed, hazy with mist, and she stared at Musian. She gently pressed her hands on his shoulders and whispered with a little trembling, "Please be gentle, I only have this outfit, the skirt, and the stockings belong to Kingdi. If they are accidentally torn, I can't compensate her." Seeing that Musian ignored him completely, Yekingzin couldn't help but whisper again, "I just plan to tease you, but you still have to know when enough is enough." At the end of the sentence, for a moment, Yekingzin stared at Musian's beautiful eyes that seemed to reveal the coercion of the Hedeo realm. However, the next moment, with Musian's more intimate movements, her voice was filled with a coquettishness that had never been seen in the past, and her delicate body softened in Musian's arms. Facts have proved that even the Hedeo realm is no match for the God-refining realm under special circumstances. This was the first time she experienced this feeling. In Kingdi's room, he had intimate contact with Kingdi's Taoist companion, and even used the clothes she prepared. It's quite an amazing feeling. After a while, her lips parted, Yekingzin's delicate and beautiful face showed a seductive blush, and she whispered softly, "Lie down on the ground." Musian was stunned for a moment, then thought of something, and looked at Yekingzin a little more strangely. Unexpectedly, Sister Ye not only looked pure and hot on the surface, but she even became more hot when she was astringent. Muse Hickson understood. Yekingzin licked her red lips, straightened her messy hair, looked at the young man with slightly lowered eyes, and a slight curve of pleasure at the corner of her mouth. However, before she could take any action, she suddenly vaguely noticed something and glanced outside the attic inadvertently. "Are you coming back so soon?" So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 375. The green light fell gracefully in front of the attic, and the next moment, it turned into a woman wearing a green skirt. When he opened the door, Musian was sitting beside the ancient coffin. He raised his head and said with a smile, "Are you done with the work over there?" Yao Meng smiled and nodded, "It's not a big deal. We just need to apply an additional formation under the Tiandan phoenix tree to suppress the creatures in it, and then go back. Your clothes seem a little messy. What happened just now?" She suddenly changed her voice and looked at Musian suspiciously. Musian looked natural and said with a smile, "Maybe it's because the sword was blown by the wind while flying." Then, he changed the subject and said, "The creature suppressed under the heavenly pill phoenix tree is a monk from the southern wilderness." Although it was meant to divert attention, it was indeed one of Musian's confusions. "Did someone just tell you?" Yao Meng smiled sweetly, "But actually I didn't mean to hide it from you in the first place. I just thought there was no need for you to worry about this little thing." "Is he one of the Nanhuang monks who attacked the Yaokai Holy Land that day?" Musian asked. Yao Meng stepped into the house and glanced at the layout of the house inadvertently. Then, his eyes suddenly froze for a moment at a certain place where the stockings should have been hung. She moved her eyes away without leaving a trace and looked at Musian, with a charming smile on her face. "Southern wilderness is not a force twisted into one rope. Although the three pillars of gods are united to the outside world, they are also divided into big groups internally. Several forces, large and small. The Holy Maiden of the Southern Wilderness participating this time is the largest force among them. The one who originally attacked the Yaokai Holy Land was a saint from the lineage of the god of earth. Now she is suppressed under the heavenly pill phoenix tree." Musian snorted, and said with a slight realization, "So, the Holy Son and Holy Girl of Nanhuang who came to Lianji sect before are affiliated to different forces in Nanhuang." Yao Meng nodded slightly and said to himself, "It seems that Nanhuang's original purpose was not just to stop me from joining the Tao. I learned this from the spiritual consciousness of the saint." Spiritual consciousness. Musian obviously hesitated for a moment, then raised his head and said, "Can you read other people's spiritual consciousness?" He had seen similar methods in the past when he was in the Mu family. The old man of the Mu family was able to hold other people's spiritual consciousness in his hands and even read it. The premise is that the opponent's physical body needs to be erased and the spiritual consciousness can be extracted separately. Yao Meng took small steps and leisurely walked to the ancient coffin and sat down. He stretched out his hand to touch the coffin that exuded ancient atmosphere. He glanced sideways inadvertently, with a smile in his green eyes. The things in this room, like, is this all for you? I know you like these. Musian pointed to the restraint ropes and the indescribable ball on the side, shrugged and said, although most of the things here are very interesting, but I am not interested in those things. Those things are not prepared for you. Yao Meng leaned slightly close to his earlobe and whispered, that's for me. Musian was slightly startled and looked at Yao Meng in disbelief. There was even a bit of surprise in his eyes. Then he was quickly relieved. As expected of Yao Meng, he understands me so well. The fairy who was reserved and cold at the beginning seems to be more and more playful now. This transformation process is really fast. Sure enough, after letting go once, there will be countless times. Maybe you can change your ways to have sex with her every day in the future. However, just when he thought of this, Musian suddenly saw a green seed falling to the ground, and then in the next moment, vines spread crazily from the ground and rushed towards him. Is it okay to start feeling astringent so soon? Isn't it because you came to Yaokai Holy Land this time to deal with southern wilderness? Musian glanced at the green vines wrapped around his hands and feet, his expression still calm. He looked up at Yao Meng and smiled. Yao Meng looked at him with a half smile but not a smile. It doesn't matter if we deal with these trivial matters tomorrow, or are you disappointed that I came back so early? She stood up slowly, her translucent green gauze skirt swaying gently, a pair of slender legs looming, her bright green eyes looking at him with a smile, and suddenly asked, did the ancestors of the Ye family just leave your natural furnace? The moment he finished speaking, Yao Meng stared into Musian's eyes with a kind smile on his face. She still used my things. Musian was about to say something when he saw Yao Meng tidying up his collar carefully and said in a calm tone, actually, I don't mind. After all, her true body is still in heaven, and it's not that big threaten. Musian didn't know exactly when the secret was revealed, but since the other party had discovered it, there was no need to hide it. Musian said, don't you hate it the most when others love you? Yao Meng playfully blinked her beautiful eyes and said quietly, if I really hated others being intimate with you, I'm afraid you couldn't even get out of the gate of Yaokai Holy Land back then. She suddenly changed her voice and said quietly, however, I don't mind if I don't mind, but if you really want to do something to me and the ancestors of the Ye family at the same time. She put her red lips close to Musian's ear and looked at him with a smile, then at least we have to wait until you are strong enough to push me and her down on the bed at the same time. As for now, let her watch me eat the dessert bit by bit and wipe it clean. Yao Meng raised his fingertips, and a lotus flower bloomed in Musian's natural cauldron. Almost at that moment, Ye Qingxin seemed to notice something in the natural furnace in Musian's body, and she suddenly raised her head to look. Qing Emperor, what do you want to do? Yao Meng's red lips curled up in a charming arc. I just want to prevent someone from trying to steal the dessert I left, so I can only ask fellow deist Ye to be aggrieved first and stay in the Tiansheng furnace to warm my spiritual consciousness. Cyan light enveloped the natural furnace cauldron, and the next moment, the voice in Musian's body also became silent. Yao Meng exhaled softly, with a charming smile on his face. He stared at the young man in front of him and said leisurely, now all the troublesome things have been taken care of. When Musian saw her like this, even though he knew that the current atmosphere seemed a bit dangerous, he still couldn't help but feel a little moved. In the winter evening and dusk, the warm candlelight and the sacred pool outside the attic seemed to be rippling with stars, like a galaxy in a drunken dream. In a small room in the attic, Musian was lying on a big bed, and Yao Meng was sitting beside him, stroking Musian's face. When the two looked at each other, the atmosphere seemed even more ambiguous. Boom. However, at this moment, a rumble of thunder suddenly came from the sky above Yaokai Holy Land. It is the thunder calamity here in Yaokai Holy Land, and at this moment it is already gathered in front of an island in Yaokai. Then, a female disciple's urgent voice suddenly came from outside the attic. Senior Qing Emperor, the monk under the Tiandan Phoenix tree seems to have touched the threshold of the Enlightenment realm, causing a thunder disaster. She was about to open the door, but she immediately heard Yao Meng's calm and understated voice, "Let Elder Yaokai activate the formation first to suppress the spiritual energy under the Tiandan Phoenix tree and delay the arrival of the thunder disaster. I will go there myself later." After answering casually, Yao Meng glanced sideways at the young man beside him. After noticing his hot eyes staring straight at him, a hint of charm flashed through his beautiful green eyes. Under Musian's direct gaze, her thin white and green jade fingers slightly pinched the thin ribbon around her waist. "Today I have a new realization. I need to retreat for half a day. It is not difficult to use formations to delay the arrival of thunder disaster. You just need to tell the elders truthfully." Yao Meng bit her lip, her tone was calm and natural, and she gently pulled off the thin ribbon. It was midnight that day. Musian was lying in front of the soft bed, looking sideways at the clothes scattered on the floor, and fell into brief contemplation. A playful smile flashed across Yao Meng's beautiful eyes, and she said, "Don't worry, your sister Ye can't see what's happening in the outside world in the Tiansheng furnace." Musian closed his eyes slightly, recalling the wonderful scenes he had just experienced, and said softly, "I'm just thinking about the origin of the universe, and why people think about it. It has to be said that among the women Musian knows, Qingdi can be said to be the one who has changed the most. On the surface, she is a fairy who cannot be blasphemed, but when she gets along with Musian in private, she plays little things in the house. Games are getting richer and richer. Especially when the female disciple from Yaokai came to report the information just now, the other party dealt with it very calmly while looking at you with charming eyes and even teasing you. She even suppressed the throbbing in her heart without letting out the slightest sound of shame. She really deserves to be in the Hedeo realm. If nothing else, her mental endurance is really strong. But as expected, Sister Qingdi is more suitable for bare legs." Musian looked at Yao Meng's flawless white skin and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. For a woman like Yao Meng, her skin is as delicate as ice crystals and feels great, but putting on stockings would be a waste. Of course, it's nice to put on stockings and play with them occasionally. "Why do you know so much now?" After another long moment of silence, Musian finally couldn't help but ask. "The most important thing is why you know how to poke his XP, you are so sure of his preferences." "I just happened to read a book and gave it a try." A soft and elegant cold voice came from the room. Yao Meng's usually cold and beautiful face was now filled with an intoxicating blush. His hair was scattered randomly on his back, and a strand of sideburns rested on his pretty face. He looked like a jade beauty. The feeling of coming alive. If you don't look at her lazy posture at the moment and just listen to the voice, you can't tell that Yao Meng is any different from usual. "The book you are talking about?" Musian asked tentatively. Yao Meng glanced at him lightly, with teasing eyes, and whispered softly, "Secret." She straightened her messy dress and gathered her hair that was scattered on her back. Musian hugged her waist, pondered for a moment, and said, "I have never seen any book in Kyushu that can teach others so many tricks." Smelling the sweet fragrance emanating from under Yao Meng's dress, Musian enjoyed it for a moment and then suddenly said, "Would you like to go under the Tiandan Phoenix tree now? Maybe some elders need your help." Yao Meng sat in front of the bed with a pair of naked jade-like legs, stretched out her hand and pressed Musian's head, letting him lie on his lap pillow. "If you use the formation to shield the secret, the thunder tribulation can also temporarily suppress it. There won't be any big problems for at least 2 or 3 days." She carefully arranged Musian's forehead hair and said softly, "Compared with this, it is more interesting to chat with you here. I can go with you. Musian thought for a while and continued, just in time, I also want to know what the creature was that you sealed under the Tiandan phoenix tree. Yao Meng hesitated for a moment, and then a meaningful smile appeared on his face. Okay. When the two left the attic, it was getting dark outside. But for monks, there is no such thing as sooner or later. In front of the heavenly pill phoenix tree, at this moment, several elders were making secrets to activate a small part of Yaokai's formations to suppress the creatures under the heavenly pill phoenix tree. Not far from the Tiandan phoenix tree, there were many female disciples from Yaokai who were looking at this ancient tree in the holy land of Yaokai and discussing something in low voices. Lord Saint, why are you here? Could it be that the thunder disaster of the creature below disturbed you? At this time, an elder immediately noticed the Qing Emperor's aura, immediately turned his head and looked at him, saying respectfully. After the words fell, almost everyone looked at him one after another. Every disciple's eyes were full of admiration, and then they looked at the young man next to King Di curiously. He has a handsome appearance and a graceful appearance. He indeed has an extremely handsome face. You all, please step back first. I want to go into the depths of the heavenly pill phoenix tree. Yao Meng looked around the crowd and spoke in a calm and gentle tone. Yes. All the elders responded one after another, but at this moment, Yao Xian in the crowd suddenly said, Does Mr. Mu also want to go deep into the Tiandan phoenix tree? The moment the voice fell, many disciples looked at Fairy Yao Xian almost in unison, while the elders of Yao Xian's faction frowned slightly and scolded softly, Yao Xian, don't act nonsense, retreat quickly. Yao Xian did not avoid it at all, staring straight at Musian with a pair of bright peach blossom eyes, saying, I know that Mr. Mu has made great contributions to the Yaokai Holy Land, but the heavenly pill phoenix tree contains the laws of the great Dao. In the past, it was stipulated that only the most important disciples of the Yaokai Holy Land could set foot in the heavenly pill phoenix tree. Even if they are Mr. Mu shouldn't be able to set foot in it. As soon as these words came out, many female disciples in Yaokai Holy Land fell silent. But then, someone quickly said, Mr. Mu has a special status, and didn't the Holy Lady once say that she and Mr. Mu are a Taoist couple? Since they are Taoist couples, I guess there is no problem. After all, Musian had made great contributions to the Yaokai Holy Land. As soon as the disciple finished his words, he was immediately recognized by everyone. No wonder Yao Meng was hesitant just now. Does the Yaokai Holy Land still have such rules? Musian listened to the discussion in his ears and was about to say something, but he heard Yao Meng suddenly say in a calm tone. You are right. If it is based on the rules of the Yaokai Holy Land, he is indeed not allowed to step into the heavenly pill phoenix tree. After all, he cannot break the rules just because of him. Throughout the ages, the only people who can set foot in the heavenly pill phoenix tree are the disciples with high status in the Yaokai Holy Land. But if it's him, it doesn't matter. Yao Xian's eyes flashed slightly, looking at the fairy in the green skirt who seemed to be accompanied by the moonlight, with a look of confusion in her eyes. And all the elders also had doubts in their eyes. It was against the rules for Musian to step into the heavenly pill phoenix tree, but after all, he had saved Qing Emperor's life, and the two of them were Taoist companions, so even if they broke the rules this time, it didn't matter. On the contrary, it is a bit strange that Qing Emperor would actually open his mouth to explain. Just when all the elders were confused, they suddenly heard Yao Meng say in a soft and soothing voice, Actually, I have married him privately before, and I plan to get married in a month, officially married in Yaokai Holy Land. So now he is my fiancé. The whispers in front of the Tiandan phoenix tree fell silent for a moment. Countless eyes looked at Yao Meng in astonishment, and even Musian was stunned. Boom! The sound of thunder catastrophe resounded again, and a flash of lightning passed by. The thunder light illuminated Musian's stunned expression, and seemed to represent his mood at the moment.